Chapter 3664. Cultivate properly, there's no need to talk so much. Ling Han waved his hands. Half an hour later, everyone finished cultivating. The queen, Hun Yo, and the big black dog all made astonishing progress. They also cultivated the monkey bros cultivation technique. When Ling Han went to the monkey valley for the second time, he asked the monkey bro if he could teach this cultivation technique to his family and friends. With the Monkey Bros cultivation technique and supplementary cultivation techniques, as well as medicinal pills, they only needed a few days to reach 12 meridians. He believed that in a few days, they could reach 20 meridians. Ling Han had no doubt about their talent. To be able to become a sky sovereign in the Yuan world, which one of them wasn't a genius? Everyone set off, rushing towards White Knight City. White Knight City was the nearest city. There was a silver-tiered 9-story tower there, which was a checkpoint that Ling Han had to pass. After a day and a half, they arrived at the place. After finding a place to stay, Ling Han went to inquire about the whereabouts of the 9-story tower. This was naturally not difficult to find, and Ling Han very quickly arrived. He saw that it was indeed a silvery white 9-storied tower that was slightly taller than the black iron tower. Even in the pitch-black night, it still shone brightly and was extremely eye-catching. Night had its advantages. There were not many people here, and Ling Han didn't need to line up, so he directly walked in. On the first floor, the original black iron men were replaced with silver ones. As soon as Ling Han entered, the silver iron men immediately woke up and attacked him. And they were stronger than the ones on the 9th floor of the black iron tower. However, for Ling Han, this was still not enough. With a light flick of his finger, the silver iron men were sent flying. He went up to the 2nd floor, stopped almost immediately, and then killed his way up to the 3rd floor. In less than a minute, he passed through the 9th floor of the tower, and most of the time was spent climbing the floors. The real battle time added together was at most 9 seconds. Pa! Another book fell from midair and landed in front of Ling Han. He picked it up and saw 3 words written on it: Immortal Crossing Finger. Ling Han roughly read it. This was a finger technique with great power. Of course, it couldn't compare to Demon Monkey Fist and 3 styles of War God at all. Having more skills was never a burden. In any case, it was not very difficult to learn, so Ling Han planned to practice it when he had the time. He left. He returned to the inn, and there was still enough time to have a good sleep. Early in the morning, Ling Han finished his cultivation, but was not in a hurry to leave. Previously, Shadow Demon Town was a small place, and he had not been able to find out too much information, but this place was different. It was a large city. Ling Han decided to stay here for a few days. There was still a lot of time, so there was no need to rush. The Empress, Hun Yo, and the others also readily agreed to this decision. The 2 girls brought the little Loli and the 7 milk babies to go shopping. The large black dog also ran off. He was also someone who couldn't stay idle. It was fine as long as he wasn't killed and cooked into dog meat. Still, Vale was the best. He did his best to help Ling Han deduce the formation patterns. Ling Han also went out. He wanted to find a place where alchemists gathered, such as the Alchemist Association. This was because the martial art of Heavenly Sea Star had a gap, and the same was true for Alchemy Dao. There were pitifully few mortal realm pill recipes, and after reaching the immortal path, there was only one left. That was the cold resistance pill. After taking it, one could resist the invasion of cold air, but it was only limited to the Foundation Establishment realm. With Ling Han's talent in alchemy, he had naturally mastered it a long time ago. In fact, because he had won the bet against those extraterrestrial visitors, he did not lack the main ingredients. However, he lacked the samadhi for the supplementary ingredients, so he had not started refining. Not long later, Ling Han found the Pill Alliance. This was an organization similar to the Alchemist Association. Of course, this was just a sub-alliance, but no matter where, alchemists were rather special. The Alchemist Alliance here occupied a very large area, and the entire building was built to look grand and majestic. Ling Han strode in, and was just about to find someone to ask how to be certified as an alchemist of the immortal path, but before he could open his mouth, he was directly brought into a room. There were many people inside, all sitting upright and still. What was going on? What are you standing there for? Quickly find a place to sit, the alchemy apprentice exam is about to begin, that person said, and even pushed Ling Han. The alchemy apprentice exam? He had been misunderstood, and the other party was really too enthusiastic, not even asking him first. Ling Han was startled and wanted to turn and leave, but then he remembered that he was still lacking 3 supplementary ingredients. If he could become an alchemy apprentice, then wouldn't it be easier to obtain them? Then he would take the exam. He also wanted to test his skills. Ling Han walked in and found a place to sit. As expected, the exam soon began. A middle-aged man appeared, and he gave everyone a piece of jade. The first test is to identify herbs by looking at pictures. Stick the jade on your forehead, and you will have 1 minute to identify each herb. Ling Han picked up the jade. It was very thin, and its weight was also very light. He stuck it on his forehead, and instantly, a stalk of herb appeared in front of him. Ling Han stretched out his hand to touch it. He could actually still feel it, but he couldn't pick it up. This was clearly illusory, but it had a very strong effect on the soul, which was why he could see it, touch it, but couldn't pick it up. Interesting. Ling Han first sighed, and then wrote the 4 words, Wild Sand Demon Herb, on the white paper. Testing his basic knowledge? He had long studied this path. This was the foundation of alchemy. If he didn't even know how to identify herbs, how could he talk about alchemy? As an alchemy grandmaster, Ling Han obviously knew this. 1 minute later, the first herb disappeared, and it was replaced by a red fruit. Gen essence fruit, Ling Han wrote another 3 words. Another minute later, the red fruit turned into a tall tree. Ling Han almost didn't think, and he could write the moment he saw it. 10 minutes later, no new herbs appeared. Don't forget to write your names on the paper, and then leave, waiting for the results, the examiner said. Everyone stood up and left the room. They didn't stay idle, and they began to compare the answers. The second question is actually Gen essence fruit, and I wrote Sanglon fruit, a fat man wailed. It's indeed very confusing. Gen essence fruit and Sanglon fruit look very similar, but Gen essence fruit has 3 very hidden golden lines, but Sanglon fruit doesn't, a young man said. Oh right. The fat man seemed to be very annoyed. As expected of second young master son, he is so insightful in identifying herbs. Someone on the side praised. First young master son is a genius in martial art, and second young master son has revealed his talent in alchemy. One sect with 2 outstanding talents. This time, second young master son's pill apprentice title is definitely in the bag. Facing everyone's praise, second young master son seemed to be very happy, but he still put on a humble attitude. He waved his hand and said, "You flatter me, you flatter me. This time, we are only recruiting 3 apprentices, and there are many talents here. I might not be able to pass." Sun Xiaolong, you do have some self-awareness, a man in green sneered. Chapter 3665. Second young master son was called Sun Xiaolong. He glanced at the green-robed man and frowned. Tan Bing, I didn't offend you. Why do you want to go against me? I don't like you. I don't mean anything else, Tan Bing said. All right. A woman in purple stood up to smooth things over. We're all from White Knight City. We'll see each other all the time. Just treat it as giving me Zhuodai some face. Sun Xiaolong snorted. Fine. For Sister Zhu's sake, I won't argue with him. You say it as if I'm afraid of you. Tan Bing was equally proud. Both of you shut up. Zhuodai pressed her hand down. Sun Xiaolong, Tan Bing, Zhuodai. Not only are they members of the top 10 families of White Knight City, but they also have amazing talent in alchemy. This time, they only accepted 3 alchemy apprentices. It seems we're all here to study with the Crown Prince. Damn, if I knew the 3 of them would come, I wouldn't have joined in the fun. Forget it. Since we're already here, let's just treat it as practice. Everyone shook their heads. Sun Xiaolong and the other 2's appearance immediately made them lose hope. After a while, the examiner came out and announced the candidates who had passed this round. Sun Xiaolong, Yang Xian, Lu Shuang, Tan Bing, Zhuodai, Ling Han. Because Ling Han was the last to enter, he was naturally the last in line. Those whose names have been called, follow me. We're starting the second round of assessment. The others left helplessly. They couldn't even pass the first round. Staying behind would only be embarrassing. The remaining people entered another room. It was also very big, but because there were less than half of the people, it seemed more spacious. This round is to identify the pharmacology. Write down the characteristics and taboos of the herbs you see, the examiner said. Everyone was given a piece of jade, and after the examiner's order, they stuck it on their foreheads. Suddenly, an image unfolded. The difficulty increased. Previously, the entire medicinal ingredient was on display. But now it had been processed. It was a dried medicinal ingredient. But this was naturally not a problem for him. Ling Han wrote down the name of the herb, its characteristics, and the points to take note of when using it. He wrote it down fluently, and in less than half a minute, he had already finished writing. A minute later, another set of materials appeared. This time, it was dried fruit. After the fruit was dried, it would naturally become deformed and shriveled, causing many of its originally obvious characteristics to disappear. Ling Han, on the other hand, was very relaxed. There was almost no hesitation, and his brush was like a god. The third copy, the fourth copy, the fifth copy. Very soon, his piece of white paper was filled with words. 10 minutes passed quickly, and the examiner announced the end of the exam. Everyone wrote down their name on the paper and left. Outside, everyone began to discuss the answers again, but this time, it was obviously much more difficult. There were a few questions that everyone argued back and forth, all of them believing that their own judgment was correct, arguing until their faces were red. And the 3 high-level pill apprentices who were marking the papers also began an intense debate. The two of you, this matter is a little difficult, said Deng Yingwei. He pointed at the 4 answer sheets on the table. Combining the results of the 2 rounds, these 4 people are the most outstanding. Especially this person called Ling Han, he answered both rounds with 100% accuracy. But this time, we are only accepting 3 apprentices. This was already decided long ago, and Tan Bing, Zhuo Dai, and Sun Xiaolong must be recommended. How can there be any more spots? Yi Wenbin also furrowed his brows. If the 4 people's results were about the same, then we could just find a random reason to get rid of this Ling Han. But the crux is that his results are far superior. Yes, Zhuo Dai and the other 2 all got 1 question wrong in the first round, and 2 questions in the second round. In total, they got 3 questions wrong. They can't compare to Ling Han at all. Song Tao shook his head. Then what should we do? Get rid of one of Zhuo Dai and the other 2? Do you dare? Deng Yingwei countered. Song Tao sighed. He was only a high-level pill apprentice. In front of the city's 10 great families, he didn't even count as a feather. How could he dare to say no? Furthermore, this was something that had already been agreed to. If he went back on his word, the consequences would be unthinkable. Then we can only let this little friend Ling Han down. Deng Yingwei smiled. Since he has the ability, it's the same next time. Yi Wenbin nodded. Who asked his luck to be so bad, to just happen to bump into Zhuo Dai and the others this time? Song Tao also smiled. Then I'll go announce it, said Yi Wenbin. He had been the one to announce the results previously. Yes. Yi Wenbin walked out of the room and gathered everyone to announce the results. This time, there are 4 people who passed. They are Tan Bing, Zhuo Dai, Sun Xiaolong, and Ling Han. He paused for a moment. The 4 whose names have been called, follow me for the final round of interviews. Zhuo Dai and the others all had smiles on their faces. They naturally already knew that their families had already informed Yi Wenbin and the others. As long as they passed the final round of interviews, they would definitely pass. Of course, if their previous results were too bad, then they couldn't blame others for not being able to help them. This interview was naturally still medicine identification. But there were 3 examiners who took out powdered medicinal ingredients for them to smell, and then had them say the name of the medicine. Zhuo Dai and the others went first and smoothly passed. Last was Ling Han's turn. Yi Wenbin took out a jade box and placed his hand on the lid. Are you ready? Ling Han nodded. I'm ready. Yi Wenbin smiled at Deng Yingwei and Song Tao. The results of this interview were naturally completely under their control. What was wrong could be said to be right, and what was right could also be said to be wrong. Of course, they wouldn't make it so obvious. They purposely made it easier for Tan Bing and the others to identify the medicinal ingredients. As for Ling Han, when the jade box was opened, a medicinal fragrance immediately rushed out. Yi Wenbin didn't even give Ling Han a chance to smell a few more times and immediately closed the box again. Say it, Yi Wenbin said lightly. Damn, so fast? Ling Han cursed in his heart. Previously, Zhuo Dai and the others were sniffing left and right, and Yi Wenbin didn't rush them at all. But now he only smelled it once and then closed the box. That's too unfair. Ling Han thought for a moment, and in an instant, his heart surged with 13 matching answers. Ling Shao grass, heaven rose silk, earthvine. These 13 medicinal ingredients all had this smell after being ground into powder. Wow, this is deliberately targeting me, isn't it? Previously, the medicinal ingredients that Tan Bing and the others identified were all very simple. Although Ling Han didn't smell it, from the medicinal ingredients themselves, the smell was very special. But when it came to him, this smell actually corresponded to 13 medicinal ingredients. Damn it. But would he be so easily defeated? The name of the medicine? Yi Wenbin urged. You only have 10 seconds. Hurry up. Ling Han remained unmoved and just quietly meditated. Chapter 3666. A Beautiful Romance. Although this scent roughly matched the 13 medicinal ingredients, there were still some differences if one looked closely. Perhaps other people wouldn't be able to tell, but this wasn't a problem for the alchemy emperor, Ling Han. Ling Han said, "This is the horn of a horned tiger. It's been ground into powder." Yi Wenbin was startled. Damn, that's right. Meng Hao was right. He really had been able to tell. If it was the former, then it could only be said that Ling Han's luck was really good. But if it was the latter, then this brat's ability to identify medicinal ingredients was too terrifying. But no matter if it was the former or the latter, he couldn't let Ling Han pass. Wrong. This is soaring firmament grass. Yi Wenbin shook his head. Ling Han couldn't help but fly into a rage. It was one thing for you to purposely make things difficult for him, but he had clearly answered correctly, so you deliberately said I was wrong. This was too much. You dare trick me? He said coldly. Yi Wenbin jumped in fright. He felt as if the person in front of him had transformed into a monarch. His majesty was boundless, causing a chill to rise from the bottom of his heart. But he immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation. He was a high-level alchemy apprentice. If he was afraid of a minor character who couldn't even be considered an alchemy apprentice, then where would his face be? If you're wrong, then you're wrong. Why do you have so many words? He said sternly. Ling Han looked coldly at Yi Wenbin. After a long while, he said, "Think carefully before you speak. Am I wrong or right?" "Are you threatening me?" shouted Yi Wenbin angrily. Ling Han smiled faintly. "Whatever you think. If you're wrong, then you're wrong. Even if you have an enormous background, we won't act out of favoritism." Song Tao slammed the table and shouted. Ling Han looked at Yi Wenbin, Song Tao, and Deng Yingwei. "Is that what you all think? What do you mean by this? Are you threatening all three of us?" shouted Song Tao. Ling Han smiled. "Don't regret it." "Ling Han, are you a sore loser?" Tan Bing interrupted. "All right." Ling Han nodded and turned to leave. "Since you won't regret it, just wait and see." Yi Wenbin and the others looked coldly at Ling Han. They naturally wouldn't care about the threat of a nobody. Ling Han originally did not plan on taking the alchemy apprentice exam. He was aiming to become an alchemist, so naturally he would not care about the title of alchemy apprentice. But being bullied like this, he could not endure it. "Am I a pushover?" Ling Han walked out of the house and went to the main hall, where he asked people about the details of the pill refiner test. The alchemist examination was simple. All one had to do was concoct a pill on the spot. However, immortal pills required immortal medicines. If they failed, the price would be huge. If they didn't have absolute confidence, who would come here to burn money? Thus, The majority of people would start from a pill apprentice. After becoming a pill apprentice, one would have a chance to obtain ingredients for free every year and take the pill master test. It seemed that this sum of money could not be saved. Ling Han walked around and bought 3 sets of ingredients. These were the 3 supplementary ingredients needed to concoct the cold-resisting pill, which he lacked. Luckily, the cold-resisting pill was a foundation establishment-level pill. The main ingredient needed to be immortal medicines, but the supplementary ingredients did not need to be so precious. Thus, Ling Han used jade seeds to buy the 3 supplementary ingredients. Otherwise, he would not have Dao stones to pay for them. He found a pill attendant and requested to start the pill refiner test. Very quickly, 3 pill refiners arrived as witnesses. "What pill are you concocting?" a pill refiner asked. "Cold-resisting pill. A 1-star immortal pill." "It is in line with the rules." The second pill refiner nodded. "Little Zhang, record it down." "Yes." A pill apprentice hurriedly answered and wrote down the details. "You begin." The first pill refiner said to Ling Han. The Alchemy Alliance had many pill refinement rooms, and all kinds of arrays were set up to correspond to different types of pills. Ling Han chose a pill refinement room and started concocting. He did not need the help of a pill apprentice. He ground the ingredients into powder on the spot, then threw the ingredients into the array one after another. He controlled the amount of ingredients very precisely. Seeing how skilled Ling Han was, the 3 pill refiners all smiled. This was not a person who was here to waste their time. Moreover, Ling Han's method was unique, which made them think that they could use it as a reference and benefit a lot from it. The time needed to concoct an immortal-grade pill was relatively long, and during this long period of time, one needed to be extremely focused. There could not be the slightest mistake. Otherwise, no matter which step was wrong, all previous efforts would go to waste. This required the support of a strong mental power, so mortals could never concoct immortal pills. Mental power was simply not enough. This cold resistance pill took about 3 hours to concoct. At the start, no one paid attention, but after an hour, when they found out that Ling Han was still concocting pills, it instantly attracted many people to watch. And after 2 hours, there were more and more people here. Most of them were pill apprentices. They did not need to watch the concoction of high-level pills, but rather the concoction of the lowest-level immortal pills, which was most beneficial to them. "Song Tao, Deng Yingwei, what are you guys still doing here? Someone is here to take the pill refiner test, and is about to succeed." Song Tao and the other 2 were talking to Tan Bing and the rest. This new pill apprentice was naturally worth celebrating, but someone suddenly popped his head in and said to them, "And then we have to go take a look." Song Tao hurriedly nodded. Quick. Yi Wenbin hurriedly followed. It takes a few years for a pill apprentice to become a pill refiner. This step is really difficult. Watching a pill apprentice successfully become a pill refiner is not only enlightening for us, it is also a great encouragement. "I wonder which high-level pill apprentice it is," Deng Yingwei also said. "Could it be Gu Ming or Zhong Luo?" "Neither. It's a person I've never seen before, and he is not a pill apprentice either." He directly started the pill refiner test. The pill apprentice who came to call people said, "So impressive." They all ran out to watch, including Tan Bing and the other 2. When they reached the pill refinement room, they saw that it was already crowded with a large group of people. There was no way to squeeze to the front to see through the observation window. Of course, one could not be disturbed while concocting pills. Therefore, other than Ling Han, there were only 3 pill refiners in charge of witnessing and a pill apprentice who was in charge of recording. The others could only watch from outside. "I can't see anything," Deng Yingwei complained. "Yeah, it's all people." Song Tao also nodded. They wanted to squeeze forward, but the people in front would not give way, so they could only shout helplessly. They wanted to leave, but they were somewhat unwilling and especially wanted to see the person who was taking the test. If they knew that the person inside was Ling Han, they would probably turn around and run as far as they could. After 3 hours, Ling Han called it a day. He reached out and grabbed, and there were already 3 spinning pills in his hand. They were all scarlet red like fire. "Please appraise them." Ling Han spread his hands. The 3 pill refiners stepped forward and appraised the pills. 3 completed pills, all high grade. 3 completed pills, 2 high grade, 1 close to high grade. 3 completed pills, all high grade. The 3 pill refiners respectively reported, and the pill apprentice wrote down the 3 pill refiners' evaluations in detail. Our common conclusion, through Chapter 3668. Pill refiners on the path of immortality were divided like this. Heaven, earth, and human, 3 major grades. Earth and human grade pill refiners were further divided into upper, middle, and lower grades, but a heaven grade pill refiner was still a heaven grade pill refiner. Thus, Ling Han was now a human grade low-level pill refiner. After becoming a new alchemist, Ling Han could choose a pill recipe that corresponded to his current level from the pill recipe library of the Alchemy Alliance. If he wanted to obtain more pill recipes, then he would have to make contributions to the Alchemy Alliance. Ling Han's goal of becoming a pill refiner was to obtain pill formulas, so he decisively chose the Greenwood Spirit Mending Pill. If he took one, it would be equivalent to years of bitter cultivation, which was what Ling Han needed now. He looked at the pill formula. The main ingredient was the fox greenwood, a 1-star celestial medicine that had to be at least 50 years old. The older it was, the better the effect of the Greenwood Spirit Mending Pill. He also needed 34 supplementary ingredients, all of which were secret grade and not hard to obtain. Ling Han quickly familiarized himself with the pill formula, but the fox greenwood was not common. He could not buy it even if he had the money, so he could only put it aside for now. He sold the 3 cold-resisting pills to the Alchemy Alliance in exchange for 3 Dao stones and some contribution points. Once he had accumulated enough, he could exchange for new pill formulas at the Alchemy Alliance. After these matters were settled, it was already evening. Ling Han hurried back to the inn. On the way, he bought a geographical record, wanting to study the mystic moon star in detail. The Empress and the rest had already returned. The group ate dinner first and then rested. Ling Han flipped through the geographical record and had a basic understanding of the mystic moon star. In the Scarlet Fire's sacred ground, there is a blazing valley. Even sages do not dare to enter. It said that it was originally an ordinary valley, but at some unknown time, the heavens poured fire on it. Since then, it has never stopped burning. Even sages fear it. The possibility of it being the heavenly Tao fire is very high. There are still 3 months before the Metal Essence Fruit Festival. I will first pass the Golden 9-floor pagoda and obtain a spot. Then, I will make a trip to the Blazing Valley and forge the Mother Gold. I'm a foundation establishment expert. It's too embarrassing if I don't know how to fly, isn't it? Ling Han made up his mind. He would cast the Mother Gold first before going to the Gold Origin Holy Land. The next morning, everyone woke up to cultivate. Ling Han didn't train with the others. He was a foundation establishment immortal. Once he cultivated, the power of heaven and earth around him would be absorbed by him. Not to mention those in the mortal realm, even those in the foundation establishment realm would be robbed by him. Therefore, he ran to a place further away to cultivate. Half an hour later, Ling Han returned to the inn. He was stunned because there were many strangers outside the inn. All of them had fierce expressions, but none of them were at the level of the celestial path. Ling Han walked over but was blocked by those people. Get lost, go to another house. What's up? Ling Han casually waved his hand. Pa, those people instantly fell to the ground. How could they possibly stop him? He strode in, killing intent rising in his heart. If these people were targeting the Empress and the others, then he would definitely start a massacre. You're still covering your face. What, can't you show your face? A woman's voice was heard. Ling Han immediately recognized that it was Zhuo Dai. She had come to seek revenge. Ling Han nodded internally. Zhuo Dai had been stripped of her status as an alchemy apprentice, so she would definitely be displeased. However, Ling Han hadn't expected that his status as an alchemist wouldn't be enough to scare the other party. Logically speaking, alchemists should have a transcendent status, right? Moreover, this matter was provoked by Zhuo Dai and the others in the first place, and Ling Han was also a victim. Ling Han walked into the main hall. and saw that there were many people who looked like servants at a glance. All of them had fierce expressions and wore the same gray warrior robes. There were only 3 exceptions: Tan Bing, Zhuo Dai, and Sun Xiaolong. As it turned out, not only Zhuo Dai, but the other 2 had also come. They surrounded the Empress, Hu Niu, and the milk babies. However, the Empress and the others didn't take these people seriously at all. They were eating breakfast, and all of their appetites were quite good, as if they weren't affected at all. "Looks like you guys haven't received enough of a lesson," Ling Han said, his voice cold. These people actually dared to stretch their claws towards the people around him. They really deserve to die. "Huh, I thought you ran away in fear, but you actually dared to come back." Tan Bing snorted. "It's all because of you that we wasted 3 years of time. Do you think that just because you're an alchemist we won't dare to touch you? You're just a human grade low level. Even if we beat you up, would the Alchemy Alliance dare to come to our house to cause trouble?" Sun Xiaolong followed up. They belonged to the top 10 clans of the city, and each of them had a caste tripod-tier ancestor. This was the source of their arrogance. "What do you guys want?" Ling Han said indifferently. "First beat you up, then make you kneel in front of us and repent," Tan Bing said. "Don't worry, we will definitely do our best to make it unforgettable for your entire life." Sun Xiaolong added. Zhuo Dai's expression was dark as she said, "We also want to castrate him. Doesn't this guy have 2 women? We want him to only be able to look at them and not touch them." "Sk, this woman is so vicious." "Right." Tan Bing and Sun Xiaolong were startled for a moment before they nodded. Ling Han asked them what they wanted. He wanted an eye for an eye. Whatever they wanted to do to him, he would return it to them. "Since you sowed the seeds, you have to reap the consequences," he said indifferently. Swish, his figure charged out. Activating so near, yet worlds apart, he instantly appeared in front of Sun Xiaolong. After stepping into the path of immortality, Ling Han could already completely control this movement skill. He was no longer able to travel 50 kilometers with a single step. Instead, he was fast, ridiculously fast. Sun Xiaolong only saw a blur in front of him, and there was already another person. As a martial artist, his reaction wasn't slow. He immediately shook his hands and slapped at Ling Han. But how could he be faster than Ling Han? "Pa!" Ling Han took out the gravestone fragment and smashed the top of his head with a brick. Sun Xiaolong immediately fell down. It was fortunate that he was in the Foundation establishment realm. Otherwise, this brick would have been enough to make his head explode. But he wasn't much better off. His forehead was swollen and swollen. In the future, he would also be plagued by bad luck, and he would suffer. Ling Han cracked a smile and turned to look at Tan Bing. Tan Bing couldn't help but take a step back. He felt a chill in his heart, but just as he took a step back, he found that Ling Han was already standing where he was before. The brick in his hand swung up and smashed down heavily at him. "Ah!" He let out a short scream and immediately followed in Sun Xiaolong's footsteps, lying on the ground. There was still one left. Zhuo Dai turned pale with fright and hurriedly screamed, "What are you all still standing there for? Go, go!" The servants hurriedly pulled out their weapons and rushed over, but it wasn't easy for Ling Han to deal with them. When he released a murderous aura, pa, 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 instantly, these people all fell to the ground. All of their eyes rolled back as if they had received a huge shock and lost consciousness. Chapter 3669. Zhuo Dai couldn't help but take a few steps back. Boundless fear rose up in her. How terrifying was this person in front of her? He had knocked over a foundation-building cultivator with a single brick. She didn't know what technique he had used, but all the mortal tier servants had fallen to the ground, especially the latter. This was too terrifying. Which foundation-building cultivator could be so strong? At first, she had thought that with Tan Bing and Sun Niu teaming up, defeating an alchemist would be a piece of cake. Who didn't know that alchemists only had slightly stronger mental power, but their battle prowess was incredibly weak? But now, it was completely not like that. Ling Han's battle prowess was not weak, but astonishingly strong. What kind of monster had she encountered? Ling Han smiled. A woman's heart is the most vicious. As expected, it is true. Zhuodai forced herself to calm down and shouted at Ling Han, "What do you want?" "Don't worry, you are so ugly, no one will have any ideas about you," Ling Han said calmly, then turned to the Empress and the others and said, "Men can be castrated, but how can women be castrated?" The Empress was proud and only made a beheading gesture. Hu Niu, meanwhile, bit her finger as she thought, and the large black dog jumped over, continuously waving his paws, barking. No one could understand a dog's barking, but Ling Han understood its meaning. "You said, destroy her face?" The large black dog nodded repeatedly. "But she is already so ugly, so there is not much meaning in destroying her face." Ling Han was troubled. Zhuodai was furious. How was she ugly? Though she could not be called an exquisite beauty, she still belonged to the ranks of beauties and had nothing to do with the word ugly. But this was not the main point. She was really afraid that Ling Han would destroy her face and was currently retreating quietly. As long as she could escape from here, she would immediately ask for help from the ancestors of her clan. Actually daring to provoke the Zhuo clan, he was seeking death. "You can't escape." Ling Han swung out the brick. Pa! Zhuodai instantly fell to the ground. Towards those who wanted to harm him, there was naturally no need to be polite. Ling Han castrated both Tan Bing and Sun Xiaolong. The large black dog leaped over and gave Zhuodai's face a good beating. Then it barked at Ling Han, indicating that it was done. Ling Han looked at Zhuodai's messy face and shook his head. This would definitely leave an unrecoverable scar. So be it, let her remember this lesson forever. Let's go. They left the inn, left White Knight City, and rushed to Quicksand City. Compared to White Knight City, Quicksand City was a big city. There were Life Core Realm experts here, and there was also the Golden 9-story pagoda. As long as he passed the Golden 9-story pagoda, he would be able to obtain a ticket to the second stage of the Metal Essence Fruit Festival. 4 days later, they arrived at Quicksand City. On the way, the Empress, Hu Niu, and the large black dog all reached 20 meridians, and even opened 100 meridians. The next step was to break through to the blood transformation tier. Ling Han had enough treasure fruits of life, so after finding an inn in Quicksand City, the two people and the dog started their breakthroughs. Ling Han stood guard for them. Half a day later, they entered the blood transformation realm. Although they couldn't be considered elites, they were stronger than ordinary people, and their lifespan had also increased by a large margin. With Ling Han standing guard for them, the Empress and the others naturally had a much easier path than Ling Han's. The cultivation techniques were prepared, and there was no need to worry about the treasure fruits of life. They only needed to focus on cultivation. Only then did Ling Han go to the Golden 9-story tower. After obtaining this qualification, he would go to the Blazing Valley and first forge the Mother Gold into the embryonic form of an Emperor tool. Otherwise, what was the point of hiding a precious piece of Mother Gold? He came alone. In any case, it was just a trip, so there was no need to call the Empress and the others. The Golden 9-story pagoda was really made of gold. From the outside, it was a dazzling golden color. Because it was daytime, there were some people here. However, there weren't many people qualified to challenge the Golden 9-story pagoda. Most people were just here to join in the fun. Now, there were obviously people challenging the Golden 9-story pagoda. The 7th floor was lit up. But just as Ling Han arrived, he saw that the 7th floor had darkened, and the 8th floor was lit up. The 8th floor. Only 2 floors left. As expected of Han Qian. This time he is going to soar. To be able to pass the Golden 9-story pagoda means that he is comparable to a 1-star genius. He can be accepted as a disciple of the Holy Land. Everyone sighed. Most of the people here had passed the Silver 9-story pagoda, but they were blocked in the Golden 9-story pagoda. Even after years of tempering, they still couldn't pass. In comparison, Han Qian had just stepped into the immortal path, but he already had hopes of passing the Golden 9-story pagoda. It was truly enviable. In just a moment, the 8th floor darkened, and the 9th floor lit up. That's Han Qian. When Ling Han went to the Black Iron 9-story pagoda to train, he encountered Han Qian and almost got cut in line. Now that Han Qian had entered the Golden 9-story pagoda, It was said that this guy had passed the black iron and silver 9-story pagoda. Now that Ling Han couldn't enter, he could only wait. The 9th floor is still lit up. It's still fighting. It's been 15 minutes. Truly powerful. To be able to fight for so long is enough to prove his strength. It's dark. Did he pass or fail? Let's wait and see. In just a moment, the golden pagoda opened and a person walked out. Han Qian. His face was flushed and he looked very pleased with himself. Clearly, he had successfully passed the golden 9-story pagoda. Otherwise, he would be crazy if he was still so happy. The people nearby congratulated him, although it was unknown how many of them were sincere. Han Qian was very pleased with himself. He nodded at the people around him as he walked. After a few steps, he suddenly stopped and stared at a person in front of him. It was actually him, Ling Han. Of course, he remembered Ling Han. At that time, he wanted to show off to Ling Han after passing through the black iron pagoda. Who would have thought that after he came out, Ling Han had completely disappeared? Are you afraid now? He was a little pleased but also a little unhappy. Ling Han actually dared to ignore him. This was contempt towards him. He didn't expect to meet Ling Han here again. What a coincidence. He smiled. Ling Han didn't pay him any attention. He didn't have time to waste on such trash. He strode towards the golden pagoda. Impudent. I'm talking to you. Han Qian shouted angrily. It's over. This kid actually dared to offend Han Qian. That's the pride of the Violet Fang sect. His future achievements are limitless. Kid, hurry up and beg for mercy from young Master Han. Maybe he'll let you go. The crowd was also discussing spiritedly. Some of them even suggested to Ling Han. No one was optimistic about him. After all, Han Qian had already proven his strength and talent, and he even had the powerful Violet Fang sect behind him. Hearing the crowd's discussion, Han Qian's anger actually subsided. He looked arrogantly at Ling Han and said, "Kneel and beg for your life. I can spare your life." Ling Han laughed. "I don't think I've offended you, but you want to kill me. What kind of reasoning is that? Because I'm stronger than you. Because this is a world where the strong prey on the weak." Han Qian snorted and said loudly. Chapter 3670. Ling Han shook his head. "You can do whatever you want if you're strong." Of course. Han Qian sneered. "So, if you want to blame someone, blame your bad luck for not becoming an expert." "I understand." Ling Han nodded. "Then kneel." Han Qian was a little impatient. Ling Han smiled. "Kneel and beg me. If I'm in a good mood, I might spare your life." Ha ha ha. Han Qian was stunned at first, but then he laughed. What a joke. Someone actually dared to ask him to kneel and beg for his life. Do you think you're a Taoist of a great sect? I don't know what you're talking about. Han Qian strode towards Ling Han. Since you're so stubborn, I'll send you on your way. It's over. Sigh, why did he have to go head-on against Han Qian? He's the most outstanding disciple of the Purple Fang sect's younger generation. Being able to pass the Golden Pagoda is enough to prove that he's a one-star genius, or at least has battle prowess comparable to a one-star genius. He asked for it. He's already given a chance, but he didn't grasp it. Does this kid still think he's learning in his own sect? Others will still care about friendship. Serves him right. The surrounding people shook their heads. None of them sympathized with Ling Han. This world was too realistic. If you didn't have the strength, you had to lower your head. Otherwise, don't complain about running into a wall. Han Qian approached Ling Han, but what surprised him was that Ling Han didn't escape. Instead, he stood on the spot and waited for him. Oh, this kid knew he couldn't escape, so he just kneeled and accepted his fate. At least you have some self-awareness, he said and reached out to grab Ling Han. Ling Han smiled, raised his hand, and slapped at Han Qian. Han Qian was furious. You actually want to slap me? It seemed like the other party didn't accept his fate at all. Instead, he had made up his mind to resist. But a moment later, he turned pale with fright. Ling Han's palm was too fast, and it just happened to pass through his defense, leaving him with nowhere to hide or block. Before he could finish this thought, he had already suffered a heavy slap. The huge force caused him to fall to the ground. He felt his ears ringing and he almost fainted. There was dead silence. What's going on? Why didn't Han Qian take a single slap from Ling Han and fall to the ground? What kind of genius are you? Han Qian struggled to get up. He shook his head, trying to wake himself up. His face was flushed red. No matter what the reason was, he had no excuse for being slapped. With a flash of cold light, a long sword appeared in his hand, densely covered with veined patterns. He roared and swung his sword. This was a magic treasure. As the sword slashed out, the body of the sword shone and slashed out a magnificent sword chi. Upon closer inspection, this sword chi was actually formed from runes, and it was slicing towards Ling Han. Ling Han threw out a punch to meet the sword chi. Shockingly, as soon as the sword chi collided, the runes actually exploded, forming a terrifying shockwave. Interesting. Ling Han smiled slightly. No wonder Han Qian was so arrogant. He did have some strength, and not only did he know how to be arrogant. However, this kind of strength was completely insufficient in front of Ling Han. The difference was too great. With a thought, a screen of starlight appeared, and the attacking shockwave instantly disappeared. You also take a finger from me. Ling Han used the immortal conquering finger. Xiao, a beam of energy shot out, shooting towards Han Qian. Han Qian met the attack and easily blocked it. I was just careless just now. He recovered his confidence and attacked again and again. The runes transformed into sword chi, forming a large explosion. Can I do the same? Ling Han thought. The reason he hadn't knocked Han Qian over with a single punch was because he wanted to test it out. He continued to attack with his finger. Xiao xiao xiao. After attacking more than 100 times, another beam of energy shot out, this time with the light of runes flashing. Success. Ling Han smiled, and when he attacked again, there were a few more runes in the energy, which shot towards Han Qian. Peng! Han Qian tried to dispel it, but the runes detonated, forming a large explosion. Han Qian didn't think that Ling Han was secretly learning. This kind of attack with runes attached was very common, and belonged to the basic level. He could never have imagined that Ling Han, who could contend with him, didn't even know the basics. How could he know that Ling Han was completely unorthodox? After stepping onto the path of immortality, no one had taught him how to cultivate, and he had completely relied on his own exploration. In 10 moves I'll kill you. His confidence grew stronger and stronger. Ling Han smiled and once again attacked with his finger. It was still the immortal conquering finger, but this time, it was completely formed from runes. This was terrifying. Han Qian swung out his sword to dispel it, but it caused a large explosion, and he was instantly sent flying. Ling Han nodded. To put it bluntly, these runes were a cultivator's comprehension of the power of heaven and earth, but they were directly materialized, and at the same time, they were more condensed, and thus formed an explosion. In this way, the attack power was naturally even stronger. Ling Han punched out again, and the runes condensed into a golden fist, which smashed towards Han Qian. This was not as simple as runes, but also contained metallic energy. How powerful was Ling Han? He could completely crush Han Qian, and his opponent couldn't resist this attack. His defense was forcibly smashed open. At this moment, the runes exploded. Peng, 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 boundless energy exploded on Han Qian's body, sending blood and flesh flying. When the fist force surged over, a terrifying scene appeared. Shockingly, a hole had appeared in Han Qian's chest. It was at least a foot wide, and it went through from front to back. Even Ling Han was given a fright. His punch could indeed kill Han Qian, but when he had punched out just now, he hadn't intended to kill his opponent. He had only wanted to test the effect of the runes and high-level energy. He didn't expect that the destructive power would be so strong that it directly blew up Han Qian's body. The breath of an expert of the immortal path was long. Even if all his internal organs were gone, Han Qian still hadn't died. He lowered his head to look, and his face was full of disbelief. He was so powerful, how could he not even block a single move from Ling Han? He was so outstanding and his future was bright. How could he die here? He looked at Ling Han, and regret flashed in his eyes. If he had known that this person was so powerful, he wouldn't have provoked him. What enmity did they have? What grudges? Chapter 3672. This person also had Khanate Dao water, or was his strength heaven-defying? This person also had Khanate Dao water, or was his strength heaven-defying? Ling Han could clearly see that this person didn't have a water shield around him. Instead, he was covered in fire runes that were effectively absorbing the power of the flames. This was an expert, and one that was extremely powerful. He could actually walk so freely in such a deep place. The other party had also seen him. The power of the flames here was too terrifying. Divine sense couldn't be used, so he could only rely on his eyes to see. That was why Ling Han had discovered this person even earlier, because he had an eye technique. It was an old man with a head full of scarlet hair. His eyes were like copper bells, and he wore white linen clothes. He didn't have a single ornament on him, but he gave off an invincible aura. He was surprised at first, but then he nodded and muttered to himself, "So it's Khanate Dao water." To be able to recognize Khanate Dao water at a glance, this old man wasn't simple. Of course, being able to appear here with his own strength was already a testament to the old man's strength. Very good. This old man wants to obtain fire crystals and comprehend the method to communicate with high-level fire energy. In this area, the number of fire crystals is limited. If there's Khanate Dao water, then this old man can go deeper, the old man muttered to himself again, but his voice was very loud, and he wasn't afraid that Ling Han would hear him. Without another word, Ling Han directly ran into the depths of the canyon. Why didn't he run back? First, he couldn't waste the Khanate Dao water. Second, and most importantly, this old man was too powerful. If he ran back, he wouldn't be able to escape. He could only enter the depths of the canyon and rely on the heavenly Dao flames there to stop him. As for how he would come out, that was a matter for the future. Right now, the most important thing was to escape. Trying to run? The old man said indifferently as he chased after Ling Han. With the difference in strength between the two of them, the old man should be able to easily catch up to Ling Han, but it was different here. The power of the flames was too terrifying, forcing the old man to use 99% of his strength to resist. This naturally greatly affected his speed. On the other hand, Ling Han had the protection of the water shield, so he didn't have to worry about Hui Yen. All he needed to do was run as fast as he could. One was running while the other was chasing. Although the old man had the upper hand in terms of speed, it would take some time for him to catch up to Ling Han. What's the point? The hemp-robed old man had already reached his limit. If he continued to run, even he wouldn't be able to endure the power of the flames, and he wouldn't be able to keep up. He was obviously aware of this as well, and his brows couldn't help but twitch as he brazenly attacked. Boom! Boundless power condensed, transforming into a huge flaming hand that grabbed toward Ling Han. This palm was incomparably terrifying. Endless symbols surged within the flames, as if a fire god was angered and wanted to burn the world to ashes. But it was useless. The flaming hand descended, but it kept melting. The power of fire here was too terrifying. Even though the hemp-robed elder had also unleashed a fire attribute attack, it still rapidly disintegrated. The hemp-robed old man frowned. He knew that this would happen. He had only attacked to scare Ling Han. He immediately mobilized his spirit, suppressing with a life force that was countless times higher than his. This was the pressure of a high-level martial artist, used to deter low-level martial artists, and it was a sure kill. Boom! The pressure surged over, but Ling Han wasn't affected at all. He continued to run quickly. This time, the hemp-robed old man was truly astonished. Chapter 3673. 4 days, 5 days, 6 days passed, but there was no change in the Mother Gold. What a terrifying fellow. Chaotic Qi descended and resisted the flame energy, not losing at all. Ling Han couldn't help but sigh. The Mother Gold was indeed amazing. It wasn't refined and was just a pure material, but it was already so amazing. No wonder it could sweep the world after merging with the power of the ancestral monarch. One had to know that even the great emperors would grow old one day, but the Mother Gold wouldn't. It was everlasting, immortal through myriad tribulations. Ling Han wasn't in a hurry. According to Wu Qingxiu, even in a land of extreme fire, the mother gold would need to be smelted for a full 36 days before there would be any change. More than 10 days later, Ling Han's mouth was dry. Even with the protection of the water shield, he still felt extremely hot. It wasn't just on the physical level but also on the spiritual level. There seemed to be a flame planted in his sea of consciousness, spreading continuously until it formed a great fire and burned him to ashes. Ling Han persevered. Secret power flowed continuously in his body, and the foundation of the immortal Tao emitted an ancient desolate qi, suppressing the terrifying flame energy. This was truly terrifying. Even though Ling Han was only trying to figure out the flame symbol, he was already drawing fire to himself. Even so, Ling Han didn't stop. As long as he could hold on, he wouldn't give up. 20 days, 30 days. Ling Han was now dehydrated and shriveled. It was guaranteed that no one would be able to recognize him. He was now completely a dried corpse. The only difference was that he still had one more breath. He had some ideas. He said in his heart, a faint smile on his lips. This flame symbol was too difficult to grasp. He had focused on studying it and finally made some progress. 32 days, 35 days, 36 days. Ling Han discovered that the mother gold was finally showing signs of softening. It didn't melt, just soften. This was already the limit. Even the heavenly Tao flame couldn't truly melt the mother gold. Ling Han's wisp of divine sense worked. It was protected by the chaotic qi and wasn't burned by the flame. His divine sense operated and fused with the mother gold. What kind of cultivation does he have? What right does he have to sacrifice a precious tool refined from mother gold? There was only one way, and that was to fuse his soul with the mother gold. From then on, the mother gold would be like a part of his body, and it would naturally be easy to use it. He used the heavenly Tao flame to burn for 36 days. There was only one goal, and that was to soften and loosen the mother gold. This way, his divine soul could be spread to every corner of the mother gold and perfectly fuse with it. Fortunately, the mother gold did not have a life. Otherwise, such a powerful existence could crush his soul with just a slight thought. Bit by bit, Ling Han calmed down and spread his soul. At this point, he naturally did not have the energy to study the flame symbols anymore. In comparison, refining the gold source was definitely more important. 1 day, 2 days, 5 days. Ling Han made some progress every day. The heavenly Tao flame was still burning. Although it was unable to refine the mother gold, it kept the mother gold in a slightly soft state, creating the conditions for Ling Han's divine soul to fuse with it. 9 heavens. Ling Han smiled. He had finally fused his divine sense with the mother gold. Transform. Ling Han held the mother gold left and right, and with the power of the heavenly Tao flame, he began to shape the mother gold. What kind of artifact should the mother gold be forged into? Ling Han considered many things. For example, the sword, the king of weapons. One sword could cut the sky and dazzle the universe. For example, the saber, extremely domineering, one saber could break the sky. And the cauldron, the important artifact of the country. The wielder of the cauldron controlled the world. However, Ling Han still preferred the tower. After his rebirth, the first artifact was the Black Tower. It accompanied him for countless years, and he also had feelings for it. The Black Tower belonged to the heavenly Lord of Origin Birth, so he would forge a pagoda-shaped artifact that belonged to him. It was decided. In the fire pit, the mother gold was changing shape. The heavenly Tao flame could not melt it, but with the control of Ling Han's spirit, he could mold the mother gold. There was no power in the world that could change the mother gold, apart from the mother gold itself. The shape of a small tower appeared. Ling Han refined it further, and 9 floors appeared on the body of the tower, which became more and more detailed. As the mother gold, it naturally could not be so simple. Every floor of the tower formed an independent space, and was very large. However, Ling Han's mental power was limited. After reaching a certain degree, he could not open it any further. It was fine. His spirit had already fused with the mother gold, and as his spirit became stronger, he would naturally be able to continue opening spaces. The purpose of coming here was to let his spirit fuse with the Mother Gold. This could only be done when the heavenly Tao flame had melted the Mother Gold until it was slightly soft. "Come," Ling Han said easily, and the tower forged from the Mother Gold spun and flew towards him. It hung above his head, and chi of primal chaos descended. Lightning intersected, and it was like a great weapon that carried out punishment on behalf of the heavens. This chi of primal chaos was extremely heavy and could crush everything, while the power of lightning was unparalleled and could destroy everything. Of course, Ling Han's present strength was not enough, and he could only use a little bit of the power of the two. However, in the foundation building tier, he should not be able to find an opponent. Ling Han laughed heartily. A foundation building tier cultivator already had the strongest treasure. Who in the world could compare? Unfortunately, this was built by him, so it naturally could not have the power of a sovereign weapon. It only had endless growth and potential. In the future, you will be called the Chaotic Polaris Thunder Tower. Ling Han wanted to leave, but just as he lifted his foot, his heart moved, and he looked towards the fire pit. Could he collect some flames? Although he did not dare to touch the flames, didn't he still have the Chaotic Polaris Thunder Tower? Collect! He took out the tower and went above the fire pit. With a thought, the space of the 9th floor of the tower opened, and it began to absorb the flames. It really could be done. This feels great. However, after the heavenly Tao flame entered the space of the tower, it immediately dispersed from the flame symbol, as if it had shattered. It was originally only the size of a fist, but now it had become a sea of fire. As a result, although the space of the tower was very large, there was not much flames collected. Not much. Ling Han filled the entire space of the tower with heavenly Tao flame, or rather, heavenly Tao flame that was one level lower. The heavenly Tao flame could burn saints to death. If it was one level lower, it shouldn't be difficult to burn supremacies to death, right? How many saints were there in the world? Supremacies should be the strongest power in the universe. If he could burn even supremacies to death, how awesome would his trump card be? If that old bastard is waiting for me outside, I'll burn him to death with fire. Ling Han murmured and then strode out of the valley. He didn't have much Khanate Dao water left. If he didn't leave, he would be burned to death here. Putting away the Chaotic Polaris Thunder Tower, Ling Han flew away and quickly left the deepest part of the valley. The power of the flames had greatly decreased, and the consumption of the water shield had also slowed down. "Brat, do you really think you can escape from me?" A faint voice rang out, and the old man in hemp appeared again. Dragon Flame's supremacy. Ling Han was confident and naturally wasn't afraid. He retreated into the depths of the valley. In such a place of extreme fire, he could greatly weaken his opponent. Otherwise, he would die as soon as his opponent attacked, and he wouldn't even have the chance to take out the heavenly Tao flame. "Old bastard, is there something wrong with you? Did I offend you?" Chapter 3674. The venerable dragon flame could understand that Ling Han had some complaints, but this brat was too audacious. He actually dared to call him an old man. He was a venerable, the strongest expert below the saints. "You're courting death," he said darkly. He raised his hand and grabbed towards Ling Han. If Ling Han had been respectful towards him, then perhaps he would have observed Ling Han for a while. If Ling Han's talent was good enough, he would not have minded taking him in as a disciple. But after Ling Han's scolding, he naturally would not have such thoughts. Who cared if you were a genius or not? In front of a venerable, you were all dust and dregs. Hong, the large hand grabbed over. It was as if even the stars in the sky could be easily grabbed and brought down. The power of a venerable was boundlessly terrifying. However, Ling Han laughed coldly. With a thought, the Chaotic Polaris Thunder Tower appeared. Then, a layer of space opened up, and towering flames surged. The Chaotic Polaris Thunder Tower itself could only be considered a one-star magic tool. However, it was extremely sturdy, and even a saint could not possibly destroy it. But now that it was filled with heavenly Tao fire, its power was different. This weakened version of heavenly Tao fire might not be able to burn a saint to death, but the venerable dragon flame was not a saint either. Hong, the flames surged, burning everything to ashes. What? The venerable dragon flame exclaimed, and hurriedly retreated. He did not even dare to touch such flames. But here, the power of the flames was too strong, and he could not retreat quickly. The surging flames chased after his buttocks. Their speed was slightly faster, and they were getting closer and closer. However, the venerable dragon flame was running out of the valley, and his speed was also getting faster and faster. Although the flames were catching up, their speed was getting slower and slower. In the end, they still caught up. The venerable dragon flame screamed. His buttocks had been burned. He made a prompt decision. Using his hand as a blade, he chopped downwards. Blood surged, and half of his buttocks were instantly chopped off, preventing the flames from spreading to his entire body. Even so, some of the fire poison still entered his body, causing him great trouble. The venerable dragon flame turned around and looked deeply at Ling Han, but his feet moved even faster. Xiao, he instantly disappeared without a trace. He was seriously injured, and the first thing he needed to do now was to expel the fire poison. Otherwise, even if he were to break his thigh, he would still die. This was a great humiliation. He actually suffered such a great loss in the hands of a foundational cultivator. That's a holy weapon. Only a sage tool could contain such a terrifying heavenly flame that could even burn a venerable to death. His eyes turned red. This child was definitely not the inheritor of some holy land on the mystic moon planet, because he had seen all the holy artifacts on this planet before, and none of them were in the shape of a tower. He would recover from his injuries, then find Ling Han, kill him, and steal his weapon. Ling Han was probably the first person in history to injure a Venerable One as a Foundation Establishment cultivator and be hated by the Venerable One, right? Due to the existence of the Mother Gold and the Heavenly Tao Flame, the impossible had become a reality. The heavens and earth were truly marvelous. It was a pity that he had wasted the Heavenly Tao Flame of the first floor. Ling Han pondered for a moment. He still had some Khanate Tao water left, so he decided to make another trip to the bottom of the valley. He decisively returned and filled up the chaotic Polaris Thunder Pagoda before leaving the Valley of Flames. After this trip, there were only 5 drops of Khanate Tao water left, which was completely not enough to enter the valley again. The Mother Gold can completely resist the Heavenly Tao Flame, so can it protect me and let me reach the bottom of the valley? Ling Han was curious. He didn't dare to test it inside the valley. If it didn't work, he would be directly burned to ashes. He took out the pagoda and let it hang above his head. Streams of chaotic aura fell down, and then he strode into the valley. The heat waves attacked him, but they were blocked by the chaotic aura and couldn't invade at all. Zhen Xing Ling Han was overjoyed. In this case, even if he didn't have Khanate Tao water, he could still come here and continuously replenish the Heavenly Tao Flame. However, he soon discovered that this was just a beautiful wish. He went a little deeper, but he still felt the heat waves. If he went a little further, it would also cause him harm. Sigh, even with the protection of the chaotic Polaris Thunder Pagoda, it was impossible for him to reach the bottom of the valley. Ling Han could only retreat. When he came out of the valley again, he not only drank water madly, but also soaked himself in the water and absorbed the power of heaven and earth, even if he could only draw a sliver of it now. His shriveled body quickly became plump, and in less than half an hour, he returned to normal. Ooh! He exhaled, but there was actually a sliver of fire in his breath. Even with the protection of Khanate Tao water, after so many days, a sliver of fire poison had accumulated in his body. Thankfully, now that he was out of the Valley of Flames, he took another drop of Khanate Tao water, and the fire poison was finally completely dispelled. The monarch weapon was refined, and he burned an old bastard. Ling Han was in a very good mood. He finally had a true trump card that could even stand against a venerable tier. Ling Han, why did you come back so late? Niu missed you so much. When Ling Han found the Empress and the others, who Niu was the first to jump over, and like an octopus, she wrapped herself around Ling Han's body. Ling Han laughed loudly. Didn't I say it before? I would need close to 2 months' time. Niu doesn't care, Niu just missed you. Hu Niu clung onto Ling Han's body, unwilling to let go. Father, I want a hug. I want a hug. The 7 children squeezed over as well. They obviously had to join in on the excitement. All right, we should leave here, Ling Han said with a smile. Better to hurry. Who knew if that old bastard would send people to kill him? Ling Han now had a trump card to deal with venerable tears, but any cast tripod tear would be able to beat him to a pulp. How many times could he summon the heavenly Tao fire? So, it was better to escape quickly. Did you get into trouble again? The Empress asked. She was the one who understood Ling Han. Ling Han laughed dryly. I think I provoked a venerable tear, and half of his but was burned away. Hearing this, everyone was speechless. Even Tang Yunar rolled her eyes. She was already good at causing trouble, but compared to Ling Han, she paled in comparison. They were not on the same level at all. One had to know that her grandfather and maternal grandfather were only venerable tears. Handsome pot, you're bragging, right? She didn't believe it. How could a mere foundation-building tear injure a venerable tear? The gap between them was boundless. Believe it or not, it's up to you. Ling Han patted the little girl's shoulder. They quickly left, and only after returning to the territory of the Gold Origin Holy Land did they all breathe a sigh of relief. It's time to go to the Gold Origin Fruit Festival. The territory of the Gold Origin Holy Land and the Gold Origin Holy Land were 2 different things. In terms of surface area, the Gold Origin Holy Land was only 1/10,000th of the size of the Gold Origin Holy Land. Ling Han and the others traveled for another 2 days before arriving at the real Gold Origin Holy Land. It was truly grand and incomparable. A majestic peak pierced through the clouds. It was unknown how tall it was, and there was a golden mist lingering around the mountain. Divine light shone brightly, and from time to time, red-crowned cranes could be seen flying by. It was like a paradise. This was only the most intuitive impression. If one tried to sense it, they would find that the power of heaven and earth here was extremely rich. When cultivating here, it was no weaker than when the sun rose in other places. What would it be like to cultivate here in the morning? That was why this place was qualified to be called a holy land. Chapter 3676. Ling Han would never have thought that he would offend someone even though he had come here in a very ordinary manner. Of course, he did not care. So be it. It was no big deal. Lu Lin was very enthusiastic. She chattered along the way and introduced the Golden Origin Holy Land to Ling Han. The Holy Land was divided into 7 areas. Foundation establishment disciples like them could only move around in the first 3 areas. The last 4 areas were forbidden areas. If they trespassed, they would be beaten up, and if it was more serious, they would be expelled from the sect. You want to participate in the Golden Origin Fruit Festival, not join the Holy Land? Lu Lin could not help but exclaim after learning of Ling Han's thoughts. This was the Golden Origin Holy Land. No matter where it was in the vast sea of stars, it could be said to be supreme. If you could join the Holy Land, why would you be so picky? Ling Han smiled. I don't have such thoughts for the time being. You really are a strange person. Lu Lin shook her head. All right, you have your own thoughts. She brought Ling Han to a building complex and arranged for Ling Han to live in a house. The people living here are all going to participate in the Golden Origin Fruit Festival in 13 days. Wait for me to inform them. Okay, thank you. Ling Han nodded. After Lu Lin left, Ling Han walked into the house, closed the door, and began to study array formations. This path was broad and profound, especially immortal-level array formations. It was the most difficult to get started. Without enlightening one's aperture, one would not be able to understand it at all. With Wall's help, Ling Han's progress in array formation was extremely fast. However, he was still far from being able to step into this door. He studied tirelessly. If he could really master array formations, his combat strength would increase by a lot. In the future, he would be able to explore ancient sites or poach people. He had made great progress in the past few days. Previously, he had not cultivated for close to 2 months, but Ling Han had constantly tempered himself in an extremely harsh environment, and his spirit had become much stronger. He opened his aperture points and absorbed the power of heaven and earth. The foundation stone in his sea of consciousness slowly grew. Cultivating here was too advantageous. 1 day was equivalent to 10 days in other places. 13 days passed by quickly. Finally, someone came to inform them that they had to participate in a competition. Only the winner would be qualified to participate in the Metal Origin Fruit Festival. For Ling Han, this was something that he had known for a long time, but for the others, it was too sudden. But what could they do? Could it be that they were going to be stubborn with the Holy Land? So be it. Everyone here was full of confidence in themselves. Ling Han thought about it and put on a mask. There were bound to be many people here who hadn't expected him to come to the Golden Origin Holy Land. In that case, let's make the surprise even more intense. When Ling Han walked out, he was surprised to find that there were actually quite a few people who did not reveal their faces. Some of them had lines drawn on their faces, making it impossible to see what they looked like. Some of them wore cloaks that covered their entire bodies, while others wore masks. Was he worried that he would lose face if he was eliminated, so he deliberately hid his face? Ling Han saw many extraterrestrial visitors on Heavenly Sea Planet, but there were even more unfamiliar faces. They should be geniuses from other planets that the Golden Origin Holy Land had summoned. Big Star Child, the Seventh Prince, Hong Tianbu, and Niu Jianhua. Ling Han smiled faintly. These guys, just wait for me to teach them a lesson. Everyone followed an emissary from the Holy Land and arrived at a public square. Next, you have one last test to pass. A middle-aged man appeared. He was tall and slender, standing proudly in the sky. Standing quietly in the air. He was at least an expert in the life core realm. Everyone was solemn. Although many of them had the background of a sect master, they were not worth mentioning in the Holy Land. Moreover, this person was far stronger than them, so they were not qualified to challenge him. Through this teleportation array, you will enter a place called the Frost Origin Mystery Land. The first 12 people who come out of the Frost Origin Mystery Land are qualified to participate in the Metal Origin Fruit Festival. In this Mystery Land, all means and killing are not allowed. So, if you are afraid of death, don't go. In addition, there is an ice origin stone at the top of every mountain in the Mystery Land. You should know what it is for, so I won't say more. Finally, there is an immortal tree there. It is now the time when the fruit is ripe. If you are capable, you can pick it as you wish. Take it as your reward. Those who have decided to participate, go forward and enter the teleportation array. Cowards, get out of here. After this person finished speaking, everyone couldn't help but hesitate. There were only 12 places? How many people were there? There were at least tens of thousands of them. Tens of thousands of people were competing for 12 places. The competition was too fierce. Forget it, we can only eat a few immortal fruits. It is not worth it. Someone immediately wanted to give up. There were many descendants of sect masters here. It was not worth it to fight for a few immortal fruits. But there were also many people who believed in their own strength. Not to mention that only 12 people could win. Even if there was only one, it would definitely be them. Several thousand people chose to give up, but there were still about 2,000 people who stayed. Go! The middle-aged man from the Metal Origin Holy Land waved his hand and ordered the remaining people to enter the teleportation array. Shio shio shio. The teleportation array continuously glowed. This time, it could teleport about 100 people. The efficiency was quite shocking. Ling Han was not in a hurry. He was in the last batch and there were less than 100 people, just over 50. Thus, the teleportation array seemed very spacious. Shio, a ray of light surged, and the scenery in front of them changed. An intense chill swept over them, and everyone involuntarily folded their arms. There were not just the 50 people who had just been teleported here. There were also those who had been teleported here, but there were already many people walking forward. The first 12 people to return will be qualified to participate in the Fruit Festival. Isn't that simple? Just reactivate the teleportation array, someone immediately said. He was immediately teased by the people beside him. What? Do you think I'm wrong? The person who had teased him said coldly. First, you're a formation master, so do you know how to activate a formation? Second, as long as you're not an idiot, You should have realized that this teleportation array is one way. This is the entrance, and the exit is naturally at the end of the secret realm, the person who had teased him said indifferently. This caused the person who had teased him to be speechless, and he could only glare fiercely. Ling Han observed for a while. He was currently on a plain, and it was covered with pure white snow. The snow was at least 2 feet deep, and when he stepped on it, it would reach his knees. But of course, this was not a problem for experts of the immortal path. Even if they could not fly using kinesis tools, it did not matter. They only needed to borrow a bit of strength to stand. In front of him, there was already a large number of people flying over, but there was also a small number of people who chose to run on the snow. They felt that flying in the air might not be safe. Ling Han pondered for a moment, then also activated his movement technique and began to sprint on the snowy ground. Reading on a cell phone was more refreshing. Chapter 3677. Whoosh, the snow was falling, and the wind was bone-chilling. Ling Han activated high-level fire energy, and his body instantly warmed up. However, the snow seemed to be formed from high-level ice energy, and it had a great restraining effect on fire energy, forcing Ling Han to constantly extract fire energy to replenish it. This was a great consumption of his psyche power. Heavenly Dao fire was not suitable here. Firstly, it was just a tiny flame, and secondly, this thing was too destructive. It could only be used against enemies, and it was better not to burn oneself to ashes first. Since the level of this fire energy was not high enough, then he would use something else. Ling Han opened the starlight screen, and instantly, the acupoints all over his body glowed, forming a starlight bell. The chill was blocked outside, and it could no longer invade Ling Han's body. However, although this no longer consumed Ling Han's secret power, his secret power was constantly flowing away. Fortunately, Ling Han's secret power reserves were astonishing, and this consumption was really not a big deal. What about the chaotic Polaris Thunder Pagoda? It could block extreme flames, but what about the chill? Ling Han summoned the pagoda, which floated above his head and let down strands of primal chaos. If he did not let the treasured artifact conceal itself, the scene would be thousands of times, and even a saint would be moved. But now, although the primal chaos was somewhat extraordinary, it was only so. At most, it could be considered extraordinary among the foundational stage. This effect was immediately obvious. Under the cover of the primal chaos, Ling Han seemed to be invincible. Mother Gold was Mother Gold. Even if it had not been integrated with the power of ancestral kings, within the corresponding stage, it was invincible. Yep, just like him. Ling Han thought narcissistically. He was invincible among those of the same stage, like Mother Gold, like an emperor weapon. His speed was astonishing. So what if the wind and snow interweaved? He strolled leisurely, and using 20 times the speed of sound, he quickly caught up with the people in front of him. However, this snow field was too big, and not everyone could walk in a straight line. There must have been many people who had been overtaken by him, but they had not met face to face. Ling Han's speed was too fast. Many people only reacted after he overtook them. They didn't even have the chance to attack. After running like this for half an hour, they finally reached the end of the snowy plains. In front of them was a ravine filled with ice and snow. A gust of cold wind blew past, and actually turned into a huge eagle. As it swept past, it was as if an ancient bird king was traveling, and its might was astonishing. Even though he was very far away, Ling Han still felt a strong sense of dread and quickly retreated. He didn't know if the Chaos Polaris Thunder Pagoda could block this cold energy, but if it wasn't necessary, he didn't want to take the risk. The cold wind howled for a full 5 minutes. Suddenly, many people appeared in the canyon, moving forward, but their speed was extremely slow. It turned out that there were caves everywhere in the canyon. Those people must have been hiding in the caves to avoid the cold and only came out when the cold wind blew. Obviously, Ling Han wasn't the only person who realized the terror of the cold wind. Of course, it was also possible that others saw others suffer, and so they learned to be obedient. Ling Han also stepped into the canyon. He could see very clearly that there was a cave every 30 meters or so on the two sides of the canyon. It wasn't very deep, at most 6 meters. Once he entered, he immediately discovered that the gravity here was shockingly strong. Not to mention flying, even walking on the snow was incomparably difficult. No wonder those people in front of him were so slow. Could the Chaos Polaris Thunder Pagoda resist this gravity? Ling Han once again took out the treasured pagoda, and felt his body become light, and he could fly up at any time. As expected of the embryonic form of a monarch armament, it was too awesome. Ling Han didn't dare to use it. Although the treasured pagoda was self-concealing, if he relied on it to move freely here, wouldn't it be telling others that this treasured artifact was amazing? He once again put away the treasured pagoda, and walked forward in the snow, one step at a time. In any case, everyone was moving at the same tortoise speed, so it didn't matter. He walked for less than 10 minutes. A strong wind howled, and instantly, a bone-chilling coldness assaulted him. That strange wind was about to come again. Without hesitation, Ling Han hurriedly found a cave to hide from the wind. The people in front of him didn't stay idle either. Similarly, they all moved to the side and entered the cave. In just a short while, the cold wind blew past crazily. Even in the cave, Ling Han only felt a bone-chilling coldness assaulting him, causing him to shiver. Cold, it was really cold. If he was directly blown by the cold wind, would he directly turn into an ice sculpture? Very likely. After the cold wind passed, Ling Han exited the cave and continued on his way. He had to get out of this canyon as soon as possible. Otherwise, if the cold wind kept blowing, it would affect his speed too much. But the idea was beautiful, but the reality was cruel. Without the protection of the Chaos Polaris Thunder Pagoda, he couldn't go fast. He tried to summon the energy of the flames, but when the cold wind blew, it was directly extinguished. The cold here was so terrifying. Ling Han activated the starlight screen again. This was much better. The gravity was greatly reduced, causing his speed to increase explosively. Most people could only move step by step, but Ling Han could jump. One leap was more than 6 meters. It couldn't be compared to outside, but here, this was already godlike speed. He very quickly passed a blue-clothed youth. The other stared at his back for a few seconds and didn't attack. But when he passed a red-clothed youth, he was attacked by the other. Here, everyone was a competitor, and only 12 people could emerge victorious. Boom, that red-clothed youth was very domineering. He waved his hand and struck out with a golden fist force. There was a large area of symbols flashing. Ling Han humphed and also struck out with a punch, but it was very ordinary. "You're courting death." The red-clothed youth sneered. His fist force didn't even form symbols, so how strong could it be? Ping, the two forces collided, and energy exploded. A large amount of snow was sent flying, and the scarlet-robed young man's expression also changed greatly. His opponent's fist was extremely solid, and it directly broke through his force and continued to strike towards him. It was too fast. There was no way to dodge. Peng, he was sent flying, and his body drew an arc in the air before crashing heavily into the mountain wall. Then, he fell head first into the snow. Before Ling Han could decide how to deal with this guy, a chill suddenly rose, and that super cold wind came again. Ling Han hurriedly found a place to hide and jumped into the cave. This cold wind came without warning and was astonishingly fast. He couldn't waste any time. There's another one outside. Only then did he remember that there was another red-clothed youth outside. When the cold wind blew past, Ling Han walked out of the cave. He saw that the red-clothed youth had already turned into an ice sculpture. There wasn't a shred of life in him. No matter what, this was a one-star genius, or an elite whose battle prowess was comparable to a one-star genius. But he had died just like that. He brought this upon himself. Who asked him to be so despicable? Ling Han didn't feel any sympathy, but he frowned. It was said that one-star geniuses could enter the Holy Land, but they had entered here to participate in the final competition. People died at every turn, but the Holy Land didn't care at all. Was this really a selection of talents? Chapter 3678. Ling Han shook his head and continued forward. After walking for a while, the sky gradually darkened, and the cold wind stopped blowing. However, the temperature in the canyon plummeted, and it seemed like it would continue to drop. Ling Han decided not to continue on his way. Instead, he found a cave to stay for the night to avoid the extremely low temperature. As soon as he entered the cave, the cold subsided a lot. Ling Han tried to start a fire, but the temperature here was so low that even wood could not burn. He took out his rations and wanted to barbecue them with a high-level flame, but that was too powerful and directly burned the rations to ashes. Ling Han had no choice but to absorb the power of heaven and earth to replenish himself. Although it was weak, it was better than nothing. However, the power of heaven and earth seemed to have been frozen. One word could describe it: cold. Ling Han closed his eyes to rest. There were still people continuing on their way outside. This was a great opportunity to surpass others. If he was not careful, he could be buried here. One knew there were quite a few people who passed by this cave. Some people would even come in to take a short break, but they sat at the entrance of the cave, maintaining a large distance from Ling Han. One had to be wary of others. Everyone here was a competitor. Ling Han did not respond. As long as others did not provoke him, he could not be bothered to make a move. Based on his observation of this mystic realm, it was not something that could be done in a day or two. There was no rush. He would take it slow. People came and went. Ling Han could see very clearly that those who tried to be brave were all pale. There was a lot of cold accumulated in their internal organs. Once it exploded, it would definitely be fatal. Even if it did not explode, it would cause endless trouble. After a while, the sky completely darkened, and the temperature dropped to the bottom. No one dared to rush on their way anymore. They all found a cave to avoid the cold. Swoosh, a figure flashed, and there was one more person in the cave. But Ling Han was surprised. How could there be such a coincidence in the world? This person was actually the seventh prince. "Get out," the seventh prince said indifferently. His voice was not loud, but it was very oppressive. He was used to being a prince. Even though he had come to the Golden Origin Holy Land, where there were many people whose backgrounds were not inferior to his, he still found it difficult to restrain his arrogance. "Since we've met, let's settle the score." "Based on what?" Ling Han asked, his tone equally calm. The seventh prince snorted, "Either get out or die." Ling Han shrugged his shoulders. "It's so cold outside. If I go out, I'll die. What's the difference if I go out or not? Besides, I came here first. Don't you think it's too much?" "There's no such thing as going too far. I'm stronger than you, so I can do whatever I want." The seventh prince was getting impatient. "If you don't go out, you'll die. If you go out, you'll still have a chance to live. Make your choice." Ling Han shook his head. "How would I know if your strength is just a bluff? Maybe it's just trash." "Fine, since you want to court death, I'll help you." The seventh prince was finally impatient. He glared at Ling Han and a surge of telekinesis suddenly surged out. Ling Han pretended not to notice and said, "Why are you glaring at me?" The seventh prince was stunned. He had released his telekinesis with the intention of cutting off his opponent's divine sense. He was a telekinesis master. He could kill someone with just a thought. However, not only did Ling Han not die, he didn't even have the slightest reaction. This was too strange. The seventh prince was not stupid. He immediately sneered and said, "Wow, so you're pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger." Even if the other party wasn't a telekinesis master, he must have cultivated a secret method to consolidate divine sense. Or maybe he had a treasure that could defend against divine sense attacks. Ling Han laughed. "I said that you only know how to boast." Sure enough, the seventh prince was unmoved. He turned his mind. Shio shio shio. Suddenly, dozens of short swords appeared and slashed towards Ling Han. Ling Han opened his telekinesis net and intercepted all these short swords. This was not a telekinesis magic tool. Whoever had stronger telekinesis would be able to control it. What? The seventh prince was shocked. This was the most direct competition of telekinesis, and the result was that the other party didn't lose to him. This masked man was actually a telekinesis master? The seventh prince frowned and felt a trace of regret. If he had known, he would have been slower and spent the night in a cave in the back. But now, the temperature had dropped to the bottom. If he went out, he would definitely die. Okay, I recognize your strength. You can rest here. The seventh prince nodded. Ling Han laughed in spite of himself. You are really too funny. I came here first in the first place, so why would I need your charity? Moreover, I have not acknowledged your strength. How could a piece of trash like you be worthy of staying with me? You're so arrogant, the seventh prince said. If I have strength, of course I can be arrogant. Ling Han attacked. Shio shio shio. The Thunder Light Fist was activated. Immediately, waves of fist energy shot towards the seventh prince at an incredible speed. The seventh prince was surprised. Of course, he was not shocked by the power of the Thunder Light Fist. In fact, this fist technique was not bad in the mortal realm. But in the celestial path realm, it could only be said to be extremely ordinary. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given it to Ling Han in the first place. Of course, he recognized this fist technique. That was why he was surprised. Was it impossible? That person had not embarked on the celestial path, nor had he received an invitation. How could he be here? Did you think of something? Ling Han smiled. The seventh prince's face was full of disbelief. Yes, I'm here. Ling Han took off his mask. It's really him. The seventh prince's mouth opened so wide that an egg could be stuffed inside. Although he already had such a guess, he did not think that it was possible. But seeing Ling Han standing in front of him, he was so shocked that his scalp went numb. How could this be? How could Ling Han appear here? Was he seeing things? What the hell? Why are you here? The seventh prince still asked. You don't need to worry about that. Ling Han said indifferently, let's continue the previous topic. I don't think you are qualified to stay with me. Are you going to scram or not? Ling Han, although your talent in martial art is monstrous, it is almost impossible for you to fight someone of a higher level after entering the celestial path. The seventh prince tried to persuade Ling Han. If you fight to the death with me, even if you win, you won't be able to gain any advantage. You will definitely be seriously injured. He had been cultivating in the Holy Land for the past year and had obtained too many benefits. He had already cultivated to the peak of the foundation building realm. On the other hand, Ling Han had definitely just entered the celestial path. There was a huge gap between their cultivation levels. Come and try. Ling Han attacked again, this time towards the seventh prince. This time, he was finally serious. A terrifying power surged. It was a power that could easily crush a peak of the Heaven Foundation building realm. Bang! The seventh prince spat out a mouthful of blood. The difference in strength was so great. Chapter 3681. The night passed and the sun rose. Whether it was Ling Han or the other two men, they all sat in a lotus position and began to cultivate. Sitting in a lotus position was a common cultivation posture, but it didn't mean that cultivation had to be like this. Some people were used to running while cultivating. Unless there was a special restriction on their cultivation technique, they could choose any posture they wanted during cultivation. Generally speaking, sitting in a lotus position was the most peaceful state of mind, so it was the most common. After cultivating, the two men's faces were full of anxiety. They couldn't wait for the sunlight to shine on them so that they could leave Ling Han, this pervert, in time. If they stayed a second longer, they were afraid that they would be tricked again. Therefore, when the first ray of sunlight shone on them, the two acted as if they were bitten on the buttocks by a dog and ran for their lives. Was he really that scary? Ling Han reflected for a moment, smiled, and also exited the cave. This valley was shockingly long, and their speed was truly too slow. Another day passed, and Ling Han was still looking for a cave to hide from the cold. This time, he found an empty cave. However, very quickly, someone appeared with a domineering attitude and told him to get the fuck out. Ling Han didn't need to be polite to people like this. He directly suppressed them and then robbed them. His harvest wasn't bad. He couldn't help but feel his heart palpitate. This was a way to make money. In the next few days, he encountered many people who didn't open their eyes, but the result was the same. They were all suppressed and robbed by him, without exception. Very quickly, There was a rumor in the valley that there was a masked man who specialized in robbing people. His behavior was extremely vile. This caused the other masked men to unfortunately be targeted and surrounded by many people. This was because everyone knew that this masked man was extremely rich. Ling Han was naturally no exception and was targeted by some people. However, he could fight against an extreme foundational cultivator, so who was he afraid of? Another 5 days later, they finally walked out of this valley. The temperature rose rapidly. Although it was still a world of ice and snow, it was already within an acceptable range. There weren't any cold winds attacking them, so they had to find a cave to hide in. This was a plain that couldn't be considered too big. In front of them was a tall mountain. There are ice elemental stones on the mountain. Ling Han sped up. This was a treasure that he was determined to obtain. With the help of the ice origin stone, the Empress and the others would be able to quickly catch up in terms of cultivation level. Of course, they didn't need to cultivate the 7 transformations, 7 veins, and so on. With Ling Han's help, the time needed for them to step onto the immortal path would definitely be much shorter than Ling Han's. Ling Han's previous speed was not considered fast, so he began to speed up after arriving here. After half a day, he arrived at the top of the mountain. Boom, boom, boom. Before he even got close, the sounds of battle could be heard. Ling Han took a few more steps and saw 7 people fighting. However, it was not a chaotic battle. Instead, it was 6 against 1. The person who was beaten up, the first prince? The first prince was not weak. After all, he had an innate divine physique. Although it was a 9th grade divine physique, it was still a divine physique. During the eruption period, even 1-star geniuses would not dare to face him head-on. But he had too many opponents now, and none of them were much weaker than him. With 6 of them attacking together, the first prince could not hold on any longer. Even if he used the Azure Dipper Star body, it was useless. Fresh blood continuously splattered from his body. Within a few minutes, the 6 people had been beaten to the ground by Ling Han. The first prince was a little stunned. His opponent was too powerful, and he did not dare to run. The main reason was that he knew he could not escape. Once he offended Ling Han, he would not be able to fight against his opponent's terrifying battle prowess. He might even invite a fatal disaster. Thank you for your help. The first prince cupped his hands towards Ling Han. Ling Han nodded. Although I do not like the sight of you as your elder, there is no reason for me to watch you get bullied. The first prince's face darkened. You are my elder. My father is a true lord of spirit transformation. You have just entered the path of immortality. How is that possible? However, he had just been saved, so he did not want to stare at him angrily. He did not say anything and only cursed at Ling Han in his mind, even though he did not know who Ling Han was. Ling Han chuckled and said to the 6 people lying on the ground, "Hand over all your spatial artifacts." The 6 people were stunned, but they immediately reacted. You are that thief, they said in unison. Who would have thought that this thief, who was only at the Mortal Foundation establishment stage, would be so powerful that it would make people speechless? Since you know who I am, hurry up. Ling Han waved his hand and said impatiently. The 6 people had no choice but to take out their spatial artifacts and hand them over to Ling Han. Money was just a worldly possession. It was not as important as their lives. And you? Ling Han looked at the first prince. Well, what? The first prince was dumbfounded. Chapter 3682. Aren't you my elder? Aren't you here to save me? Why are you robbing me now? The eldest prince's jaw dropped, a look of disbelief on his face. He had never seen an elder like this, robbing even his own junior. What the fuck? What? Are you unwilling? Ling Han glared at him. If I didn't save you, would you have been able to keep your life? Also, what if one of these people has a special hobby of bursting people's chrysanthemums? Think about it, that would be a fate worse than death. The other 6 people hurriedly shook their heads. All of them were normal and would never be interested in a man's chrysanthemum. Ling Han looked at the 6 of them coldly and said calmly, Think carefully, are you interested in men or not? This was a blatant threat. The 6 people could not help but nod. Seeing Ling Han like this, it seemed like he would make a move at the slightest disagreement. Forget it, for the sake of my own life, I'll make a sacrifice. No one will know anyway. They all nodded instead of shaking their heads. Tisk, so many gay men. Ling Han pretended to be shocked, then patted the eldest prince's shoulder. I thought there was only one gay man. I didn't expect all 6 of them to be gay. See, luckily I saved you. Otherwise, how miserable would you be after being surrounded like this? The eldest prince's mouth was half open. Fuck, no one was interested in my chrysanthemum. They were all forced out by you, okay? But facing Ling Han's tyrannical power, what could he say? He obediently handed over the ice essence stone. Otherwise, if Ling Han searched his body, he would not be able to keep it. So, he might as well take the initiative. Ling Han smiled and patted the eldest prince's shoulder again. He said to the other 6 people, "This is my nephew. You have to be more polite, or else I will make trouble for you." The eldest prince's face was black. Although he was not beaten, he was not any less displeased than the other 6 people. "Alright, I'm leaving. No need to send me off." Ling Han swaggered off. Who would send you off? Who the hell would send you off? Everyone, including the first prince, wished that they could charge up and trample on Ling Han. However, in reality, they could only watch him leave. Ling Han continued to move forward. He should be the one walking at the front now, heading towards the second peak. I really didn't expect that the first prince had actually entered the Heaven Foundation establishment stage. This cultivation speed is so fast. But without enough treasure life fruits, how did he manage to reach the top? The Holy Land gave it to you? From this point of view, the Holy Land is really willing to go all out. But looking at the cruelty of this competition, it doesn't seem to match the selection of talents. What are they planning? Ling Han thought about it as he walked. However, he was not a roundworm in the stomach of the Golden Origin Holy Land, so how could he know? A day later, he arrived at the top of the second mountain peak. The top of the mountain was very flat and covered in pure white snow. In the snow, there was a large rock that was unusually protruding, and on top of it were several small rocks that looked like ice cubes. Ice Origin Stone. Ling Han strode over, but he had only taken a few steps before he stopped. There's a formation protecting it. He murmured. Although he had not yet mastered a celestial path grade formation, it was a piece of cake for him to discover the existence of a formation. Not simple. Ling Han waved his hand, and instantly, patches of snow were sent flying, revealing the ground. With a large rock as the center, the ground was densely covered with silver-veined patterns. There seemed to be no pattern to them, but upon closer inspection, it seemed to conform to some kind of principle, causing one to be intoxicated and want to comprehend it. Ling Han threw a rock over. Before the rock could land, a ray of light shot over. Heavens, true self-realm materials, and spirit transformation ones at that. Nangong Lin couldn't help but feel greedy. Even true self-realm and spirit transformation true lord would go crazy for materials of this level, let alone him. Hee. If it's not yours, don't think too much about it. Ling Han rushed over and unleashed a series of attacks. This time, Ling Han didn't use the immortal crossing finger. Instead, he used the demon monkey fist. Boom, a terrifying aura surged, and a demon monkey appeared. It was at least 10 meters tall, and it roared as it pounced toward Nangong Lin. Boom. Bolts of lightning also shot out from the Primal Chaos Extreme Thunder Pagoda, launching a second round of attacks at Nangong Lin. Nangong Lin hurriedly used the White Jade Tower to defend himself. However, this could block the impact of the Demon Monkey Fist, but it couldn't block the illusion of the ancient Demon Monkey. It constantly attacked his soul, making him feel extremely uncomfortable. However, the White Jade Tower was unable to block the lightning of the Primal Chaos Extreme Thunder Pagoda. It could only reduce a portion of its power, but it still made Nangong Lin's entire body numb, and he hovered between life and death. Ling Han laughed loudly. His attacks were like a storm, and very quickly, Nangong Lin was blasted to the ground. So what if he was at the ultimate foundation establishment stage? Ling Han didn't stand on ceremony and searched Nangong Lin's belongings. Naturally, he didn't let go of the white jade demon-suppressing pagoda. This was a 3-star material. If he sold it to a life core realm cultivator, he could melt it and refine it again, and it would immediately become a life core realm treasure. This could be sold for a high price. Return my pagoda. Nangong Lin lay on the ground, his face full of anger. Ling Han smiled. If you're not convinced, you can come to me for revenge in the future. I will never change my surname. I am Yo Jianhua. Anyway, he was wearing a mask, so no one recognized him. You're that masked bandit. Nangong Lin reacted. It's your grandpa Nyo. Ling Han slapped Nangong Lin unconscious. Should I wear the battle armor that I stole from Yo Jianhua in the future? Wouldn't that be more similar? Ling Han continued to study the array formation, guiding the array formation to attack him, so that the array formation could appear for him to observe. After a while, someone ran over, but when he saw Nangong Lin lying on the ground, he decisively did not attack Ling Han. Instead, he went around him. Nangong Lin was really miserable. He had been stripped to his underwear. After that, people continued to come up. Most of them took a detour when they saw Nangong Lin, but there were also a few who thought that they were stronger than Nangong Lin. In the end, they couldn't escape the fate of being beaten to the ground. They were placed together with Nangong Lin, and their treasures were all plundered. Before he could decide whether to go into the water to catch the fish or continue forward, he saw a few people walking back. Only after asking did he find out that there was no way forward. Why was there no way forward? It turned out that there was a large door blocking the way, and the door couldn't be touched at all. It was filled with the power of thunder, and they couldn't climb over it. There were only 2 options. 1, go back the way they came, and 2, find the key, because the door was locked. Since this is a test set up by the Golden Origin Holy Land, there must be a key to open the lock. We came back to ask everyone to look for clues, one of the people who came back said. However, there were very few people who responded. Since so many people had chosen to stay here to catch the silver arowana, why would they give up on the silver arowana and go look for the key? It was uncertain whether the key existed or not. Maybe there is no key at all, someone said. This is a dead end. We have to find another way. The people who came back before decided to go back and explore the 2 paths. The people who stayed behind had an easy choice. If those people didn't come back, it meant that there was at least one way out of the other 2 paths. Thus, everyone continued to fish. Ling Han's heart skipped a beat. Could the key be in the lake? Otherwise, the lake's appearance would be too sudden. Let's look for it. He came to the lakeside, but before he could even enter the water, he felt a gust of cold air. You're just a foundation-building cultivator. Get lost. Someone immediately shouted. It was a man, but he had an interesting appearance. Most people's eyebrows were thin, but this man's were small circles. There was another person next to him who also had an interesting appearance. His hair was divided into 3 parts, and he had tied it into 3 braids. Hey, a masked man? The man with braids said in surprise. Could it be that bandit? How is that possible? He's just a foundation-building cultivator, the man with the eyebrows said disdainfully. That's true. The man with braids nodded. I'm really sorry, but my cultivation level is too low. Ling Han couldn't help but rub his chin. Could a low cultivation level become a point of ridicule? Get lost. The man with the eyebrows became impatient and slapped Ling Han, wanting to throw him into the lake. Ling Han raised an eyebrow and also delivered a slap at him. Bang! Powerful energy waves overflowed, and all kinds of symbols exploded. The man with the eyebrows fell on his back. He screamed, and blood gushed out of his body. The man with braids was shocked. How was this foundation building? Was there such a strong foundation building cultivator? This guy must have reached the Heaven Foundation building or even the Extreme Foundation building, and then used a special technique or treasure to change his life waves. That's why he looked like he was at the foundation building stage. Ling Han didn't say anything. He first searched the man with the eyebrows, and then threw him into the lake. I'm freezing, the man with the eyebrows screamed. He ignored the pain all over his body and quickly used all 4 limbs to swim out of the lake. Fortunately, Ling Han didn't have any intention of killing him. Otherwise, as long as he didn't let him come ashore, the man with the eyebrows would definitely die. That bandit is here. It's him. So that's what he looks like. Nonsense. He's wearing a mask, so of course he looks like this. Everyone turned to look at Ling Han. The masked man and the robber, with these 2 added together, everyone could naturally guess Ling Han's identity. For a moment, everyone stared at Ling Han. This guy had robbed many people, so he should have a lot of treasures on him. Reading on your phone is more refreshing. Chapter 3686. A Beautiful Romance. Ling Han clasped his hands behind his back and said indifferently, "What? Someone wants to give me treasures? You're really arrogant, but you're only in the Human Foundation establishment stage," someone immediately said coldly. "There's no way he's in the Human Foundation establishment stage. He's definitely in the Heaven Foundation establishment stage or even the Paramount Foundation establishment stage in disguise," someone hurriedly corrected. "That's right, there's no such strong Human Foundation establishment stage in this world." This won the approval of many people. It doesn't matter if you're in the Heaven Foundation or Paramount Foundation establishment stage, you're just one person, said the person from before. "If we attack together, we can beat him down in 2 or 3 moves." Many people nodded. Ling Han had too many treasures on him, enough to make people's eyes go red. Ling Han cracked a smile and said, "All right, how many people want a share of my treasures? Please stand to the left. I'll count the number of people and see how many treasures each person can get." Huh, so cowardly? That made sense. This guy was all alone, so how could he fight against so many people? Many people walked out, laughing and joking. If they could get something just by walking a few steps, why not? Ling Han took a look. There were about 35 people. That's all. He was a bit disappointed. There were more than 100 people here. "Less nonsense, hand over the treasures," someone shouted. Ling Han laughed. "I've changed my mind. Since there's only so few people, why don't I knock you all down and rob you clean?" The people on the left looked at each other and burst into laughter. There were more than 30 of them, and most of them were in the Heaven Foundation establishment stage. Where did his courage come from? "I'll say this first, don't run." Ling Han smiled and charged at them. Activating so near, yet worlds apart, his speed was extremely fast. He had already crashed into a person, and sent that person flying, crashing into another person at the side. The person next to him wasn't on guard. He saw a dark figure crash into him and instinctively swung his palm. He only reacted when his palm hit the person's body, but it was already too late to stop. Blood and flesh could be seen. The person's head had actually exploded. "You killed someone," Ling Han said to the person who attacked. "No, I didn't do it on purpose." The man was still a little confused and said subconsciously, "Sigh, my condolences," Ling Han continued. That person was stunned for a moment before he reacted. He pointed at Ling Han and said, "It's you. You're the one who knocked him over." "I was the one who knocked him over, but you were the one who killed him." Ling Han nodded. "Everyone, please be the judge." What a glib tongue. "Everyone, let's attack together." The people around him weren't fooled, and they all charged forward to attack Ling Han. Ling Han merely smiled as he activated his baleful aura attack. It surged towards everyone. This was the most powerful weapon in a group battle. With a single charge, everyone was hit, and their attacks instantly became chaotic. Ling Han laughed heartily and charged towards one of them. The 18 claws of the golden eagle spread out. He was like an ancient bird king, about to hunt the world. That person hurriedly parried the attack, and the others immediately came to their senses and attacked Ling Han. Ling Han pretended he didn't know and continued to attack his opponent. Was he seeking his own death? Over 30 Foundation Establishment Realm martial artists attacked together. Let alone Heaven Foundation Establishment Realm martial artists, even Extreme Foundation Establishment Realm martial artists would have to flee. Bang, 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 bang. Ling Han's fist collided with that person, but his back was attacked by over 30 people at the same time. Instantly, there was an explosion of light and runic symbols. But it was useless. When the light dissipated, everyone was shocked to find that Ling Han didn't even fall down. He continued to stare at his opponent and attack wildly. How was this possible? Was his defense even stronger than a cast tripod realm martial artist? You guys look. Someone pointed at Ling Han with an unknown expression. Everyone stared at Ling Han and couldn't help but grimace. This guy is actually wearing so many armors. Damn, no wonder we couldn't break through. There are more than a dozen layers. They were all speechless. Ling Han was wearing more than a dozen battle armors. These were immortal artifacts, and they could naturally change their sizes. They might not be as big as planets or as small as pendants like the Mother Gold, but it wasn't a problem for them to change their sizes by more than a dozen times. Ling Han was wearing more than a dozen layers of armor. How terrifying was his defense? High-grade energy couldn't penetrate so many layers of armor. Use the power of vibration. Someone shouted. That's right. The armor can only defend against high-grade energy and piercing attacks. As long as we use the vibration attack, we can still transmit the power to his body. Kill! These people once again charged over and began to attack Ling Han. Ling Han only stared at one person and attacked. That person was at the Heaven Foundation establishment realm, so how could he resist Ling Han? In just 2 or 3 attacks, he was beaten down by Ling Han. Who is the third? He stared at another person and attacked aggressively. This was still a Heaven Foundation establishment realm cultivator. How could he be a match for Ling Han? After a few moves, he was also beaten down by Ling Han. Why is this guy still standing? Seeing that 3 people had fallen on their side, but Ling Han was still alive and kicking, everyone couldn't accept it. Even if you wore more than a dozen layers of armor, your defense couldn't be unbreakable. It wasn't like a dozen Foundation establishment realm cultivators were working together to protect you. But what they didn't know was that Ling Han had cultivated the mortal realm to perfection. His defense was far stronger than ordinary Foundation establishment realm cultivators, and with the addition of the starlight screen, his defense had reached an unimaginable level. Bang bang bang. People kept falling. 5, 10, 15, 20. At this moment, everyone was so shocked that they couldn't say a word. Was this a myth? One person had to complete the impossible task of defeating more than 30 people of the same level? Without any suspense, the remaining dozen people soon fell down. As Ling Han searched their bodies for treasures, he asked the remaining people, "Are you guys really not planning to make a move?" He was a very principled person. If others didn't attack him, then he wouldn't take the initiative to provoke them. "You're very arrogant," said a young Foundation establishment realm cultivator. "But you're also very strong." Ling Han sighed. If no one attacked, he wouldn't be able to rob more people. After plundering everything, he was a little worried. Although the space artifacts were small, they would still take up space if there were too many of them. Space artifacts could not contain space artifacts, and there would only be one result if they were forcefully squeezed. One or both of them would break. He put all these spatial artifacts into a bag and carried them on his back. Wearing more than a dozen pieces of armor and carrying a bulging bag, Ling Han really looked like a thief. He couldn't help but feel depressed, but he couldn't just throw away the spatial artifacts, right? These things could be sold for at least 1 Dao stone, and some of them had especially large spaces, so they were quite valuable. Who would dare say that? Ling Han went into the water and tested the temperature. It was cold to the bone, but after Ling Han opened the starlight screen, he could completely resist this low temperature. Chapter 3688. Ling Han circled the lake again, but there weren't many silver arowanas left. There were no more than 10 of them. Forget it. I'll just let them rest and reproduce here. He floated up, and with a splash, he rushed out of the water. What a big fish! A person was by the lake, and he let out a cry of surprise. He never would have thought that such a big silver arowana would jump out. What a big splash! Was that the silver arowana king? He immediately prepared to attack. He was going to use his mystic power to entangle this fish king and drag it to the shore. Boom. The mystic power was like silk, coiling around Ling Han. Of course, Ling Han didn't know that he had been mistaken for a silver arowana, and a fish king at that. He only knew that someone was attacking him, but their goal wasn't to kill him. Instead, they just wanted to capture him. Who was so daring? Ling Han humphed and waved his fist in return. What the hell? That person's eyes were wide open. Now, he could clearly see that it wasn't a fish king that had jumped out of the lake, but a person. He had just arrived not long ago, and naturally hadn't seen Ling Han jump into the water. How could he have expected that someone would suddenly jump out? Water ghost. He definitely didn't believe that it was a person, because he knew how cold the lake was. No one could last more than 5 minutes. He had been here for at least an hour, and during that time, no one had dived into the water. At most, they had tested the water temperature. Therefore, if someone had jumped out of the lake, it had to be a water ghost. Bang! Ling Han punched out, destroying the opponent's power. The remaining force didn't dissipate, and it sent the opponent flying. If it wasn't for the fact that the opponent only wanted to capture him and not kill him, Ling Han wouldn't have shown any mercy. Thinking about it, he realized that the opponent had mistaken him for a giant silver arowana. Damn. After seeing Ling Han clearly, the people by the lake all let out cries of surprise. They were all people who had seen Ling Han jump into the water. He's out. Heavens! How long has it been? Almost a day. Are you a freak? You can actually stay at the bottom of such a cold lake for almost a day. Are you a silver arowana that can naturally resist the cold? Shio, someone jumped over. It was a tall and slender young man. He swept a glance at Ling Han and said, "Why were you able to stay in the lake for so long?" "Do I know you?" Ling Han asked. The young man was stunned and said subconsciously, "How are you worthy of knowing me? Motherfucker, can't you talk?" "Since I don't even know who you are, why should I answer you?" Ling Han retorted. The young man flew into a rage. "Because I am Yu Haoming. Never heard of it." Ling Han waved his hand disdainfully. Don't think that you can be arrogant in front of me just because you defeated so many people," said Yu Haoming coldly. "In my opinion, your strength is only SOSO. He was a Paramount Foundation establishment genius, so he naturally believed that in this secret realm, there were at most people who could contend against him. Ling Han broke into a grin, and he charged towards Yu Haoming. His murderous aura shot out, and Yu Haoming could not help but let out a muffled groan. He felt a piercing pain in his mind, and also an indescribable sense of fear. He couldn't help but be shocked. Without facing it personally, no one could imagine the power of a baleful aura attack. His strength was actually not inferior to Ling Han's. In terms of raw power alone, he was actually much stronger. But now that he had lost the initiative, he was forced into a passive position. He had no choice but to first parry Ling Han's attack. Ling Han let out a long howl and punched out with both fists. He had already used the Demon Monkey Fist, and the power of 108 overlapping attacks were unleashed. This was too terrifying. So what if Yu Haoming was a one-star Paramount Foundation establishment genius? He had no power to fight back at all. He had just caught his breath and was about to attack when he was blasted by a baleful aura attack. His mind went blank for a moment, and he could only passively defend. In less than 100 moves, Yu Haoming had been blasted to the ground. Seeing this scene, everyone's expressions were solemn. Even though Ling Han had previously defeated 35 Paramount Foundation establishment cultivators with his own power, not a single one of them was a Paramount Foundation establishment cultivator. Though everyone acknowledged Ling Han's strength, they didn't think that they would lose to Ling Han. Because a large part of the reason was that Ling Han had worn more than 10 layers of armor, which was extremely useful when fighting against low-level cultivators. But now, Ling Han had completely used a violent attack to defeat Yu Haoming, displaying his terrifying strength. This person was terrifying. Ling Han smiled and looted Yu Haoming clean. "You know that I'm short of money, so you took the initiative to give me treasures. I know Janhua, thank you." Yu Haoming stared at Ling Han. Nyo Janhua, he remembered this name. He had actually robbed him until he was only left with a pair of underpants. In the future, he would definitely take revenge, definitely. Ling Han naturally wouldn't care. Go and take revenge on Niu Jianhua, young man. He swaggered off. Since he had already caught all the silver arowanas and obtained the key, what was the point of staying here? Soon, he arrived in front of the door that those people had mentioned before. This door was built in the middle of a canyon, blocking the way forward. The door was completely black and looked like it was made of metal. He could see that the light of lightning was flashing on the door. This door couldn't be touched. Once it was touched, it would be electrocuted. Ling Han took out the key and shot it into the keyhole. With a sharp sound, the key entered the keyhole. He then used his telekinesis to control the key, and it started to turn. A crisp sound was heard. The door didn't open, but the light of lightning on it disappeared. Ling Han pressed his hands on the door, a smile on his face. He didn't feel anything at all. He pushed hard. Crack, crack, crack. The door slowly opened. He left. He strode forward, passed through the door, and continued forward. Soon he reached the end of the canyon. A new snowy peak appeared in front of him. After a few leaps, Ling Han arrived at the foot of the mountain. He was just about to climb up when he saw that there were people fighting fiercely not far away. Both of them were wearing armor, and their battle was incredibly intense. Ling Han recognized them. They were actually Princess Bai Xiao and Niu Jianhua. Ling Han could imagine that both of them had come to the Golden Origin Holy Land, but it was such a coincidence that they had run into each other. Princess Bai Xiao was wearing his armor, so Niu Jianhua naturally recognized her. Thus, he would definitely go up to her and ask her about it. The problem was, where did this guy get his armor? With a single glance, Ling Han had an intuitive understanding of their battle prowess. They were both at the peak of the Human Foundation establishment realm, and they were both one-star geniuses. With the help of their armor, they could barely reach the battle prowess of 1 or 2 stars. However, Niu Jianhua's armor was clearly a bit weaker. That was normal. Otherwise, he wouldn't only have 2 sets of armor. This one had probably been worn by those old servants. Great thief, I'll deal with you. Ling Han let out a long roar and jumped out. Chapter 3689. What was going on? Princess Bai Xiao and Niu Jianhua looked at Ling Han at the same time. It's you! Niu Jianhua immediately gnashed his teeth. He hated Ling Han to the core, and recognized Ling Han with a single glance. That was because Ling Han was wearing his armor. In order to attract hatred for Niu Jianhua, Ling Han had worn his armor on the outermost layer. Princess Bai Xiao was stunned at first, but then she revealed a look of pleasant surprise. She was confident in Ling Han's talent, but there was always the possibility of an accident. It was only now that she had seen Ling Han that her heart finally calmed down. Why did she recognize Ling Han? He was wearing a mask. Princess Bai Xiao was a little stunned. She was so familiar with Ling Han that she didn't need to see his face to recognize him. Ling Han looked at Niu Jianhua with killing intent in his eyes. Niu Jianhua had brought a few old servants to ambush him in the primordial sect, and he had almost died in his hands. Of course he had to take revenge. It's you, and you're that great thief. Niu Jianhua's reaction wasn't slow. He immediately reacted when he saw Ling Han wearing more than 10 pieces of armor. Ling Han smiled slightly. You're wrong. You're the great thief. You dare to frame me? Niu Jianhua was quite smart. Ling Han gave him a thumbs up and generously gave him a like. You deserve to die. Niu Jianhua was furious. This person was too despicable. He had actually pretended to be him to rob and smeared his reputation. He roared and no longer paid attention to Princess Bai Xiao, charging towards Ling Han. Don't go! Princess Bai Xiao hurriedly chased after him. Although Ling Han had now advanced into the foundation building tier, compared to them, who had come to the Holy Land long ago, after a year of bitter cultivation, their cultivation had advanced rapidly. For example, she and Niu Jianhua had both reached the peak stage of foundation building. What about Ling Han? Without such good conditions, he should still be at the early foundation establishment stage. She was naturally worried that Ling Han wasn't his match and would be injured by Niu Jianhua. Bang bang bang, the two of them fought along the way. Although Niu Jianhua could not shake off Princess Bai Xiao, Princess Bai Xiao could not block Niu Jianhua's way. Hurry up and leave. Princess Bai Xiao used her divine sense to tell Ling Han. Why was this fellow still standing there? Ling Han chuckled. It's fine. Leave this scum to me. How dare you call me a scum? Niu Jianhua roared in anger. No matter who you are, I'll make sure you die today. Ling Han smiled and flicked a finger at Niu Jianhua. Xiao, a blast of energy struck out. It was precisely the immortal conquering finger. This was a very ordinary celestial art, but when it was used by Ling Han and received by Niu Jianhua, it was completely different. For example, if a saint attacked, even if he didn't use an immortal technique, his attack could still destroy a planet. Niu Jianhua couldn't dodge it at all. With a puff, the force hit his chest. A terrifying force surged, and his whole body was sent flying. Peng! Niu Jianhua fell heavily to the ground, his face full of confusion. He actually couldn't block Ling Han's finger. How was this possible? He looked down and saw a dent on the armor, which was now slowly recovering. He was dumbstruck. The power of Ling Han's finger actually caused the armor to cave in. How terrifying was this power? If it weren't for the protection of this armor, wouldn't he have been insta-killed in a single strike? What kind of terrifying monster was this? When he broke through to the celestial path, Ling Han was definitely still in the mortal realm and hadn't even reached the mystery-seeking realm. How could he have such battle prowess now? He crawled to his feet and felt an extreme pain in his chest. Even if the battle armor had dissipated most of the might of Ling Han's finger, there was still a portion that had affected his body. It was as if all his bones had been broken. The difference in strength was really as wide as the sky. Niu Jianhua didn't hesitate anymore. He immediately turned and ran. As he ran, he staggered and almost fell. The bones in his chest really seemed to be broken, and it hurt when he moved. But in order to survive, he forced himself to endure and continued running. Princess Bai Xiao was also stunned. She knew that Ling Han was a monster, but she didn't think that Ling Han would have any terrifying battle prowess after entering the celestial path. After all, on the celestial path, the gap between geniuses had actually narrowed a lot, and realms were the true path. However, Ling Han had subverted her understanding. Precisely because of this, she only reacted after Niu Jianhua had run far away. She couldn't let him escape, or else he would invite a spirit transformation realm cultivator. That wouldn't be a joke. Ling Han, go after him, she shouted, and also began to chase. Ling Han smiled. There's no rush. He walked leisurely, neither hurried nor slow. Princess Bai Xiao couldn't help but be speechless. Why you still pretending at this time? Quickly take care of the future trouble. Niu Jianhua also saw this and he couldn't help but sneer. If he could escape this time, he would immediately think of a way to return to the mother planet and then invite an expert to kill Ling Han. It was enough to kill a Foundation establishment cultivator, and there was no need to alarm the old man. Bang! However, before he finished thinking, he felt his body tremble, and then he flew up, heavily crashing into a large tree. He fell down, and his whole body seemed to have fallen apart. He didn't have any strength at all. What's going on? He was shocked to find that Ling Han was standing beside him. Hiss! When did he catch up? How did he catch up? Impossible! Xiao, at this time, Princess Bai Xiao arrived gracefully, her face full of shock, because she had seen very clearly just now that Ling Han had caught up with Niu Jianhua at an indescribable speed, and then sent him flying. This terrifying speed, this terrifying strength. Ling Han smiled and said to Princess Bai Xiao, I already said there's no rush, right? Yes, you're awesome, of course you're right. In any case, Princess Bai Xiao couldn't say anything, only deep shock. Ling Han robbed Niu Jianhua again, but this guy was really very poor now. Apart from the armor on his body, there was nothing else of value. Niu Jianhua, on the other hand, wanted to die from grief and indignation. Second time, this was already the second time. Ling Han smiled and comforted him, don't worry, there won't be a third time. Niu Jianhua's heart was full of killing intent. He said to himself, of course there won't be a third time, because he would invite an expert to kill Ling Han at any cost. Chapter 3690. Beauty, You seem to be even more beautiful after a year. Ling Han waved at Princess Baishao. Princess Baishao snorted. Someone seems to have become glib after a year. Ling Han laughed loudly. I'm in high spirits when I'm happy. I'm just going to chat with you. What happy event? Princess Baishao did not ask. She was not a gossipy person. She said seriously, you go first. You dislike me so much? Ling Han smiled. Princess Baishao shook her head. I'm too weak here. I'll only burden you. So that's why. Ling Han smiled. It's fine. I'm very strong. Princess Baishao still shook her head. I want to stand where I'm supposed to stand and sit where I'm supposed to sit with my own strength. Ling Han was silent for a moment before nodding. Okay, then I'll go first. He respected her thoughts and soared up. He quickly left. Princess Baishao looked at his back. She did not look away even after Ling Han disappeared. She was a little dazed and a little silly. She was not as arrogant as she said. She did not want to travel with Ling Han because she did not want to be a burden to him. She was willing to stay in an inconspicuous corner and watch Ling Han soar into the sky and shine brightly. When it came to understanding women, Ling Han was far less talented than he was in martial art, pill Dao, and array Dao. He really thought that Princess Baishao refused to travel with him because of her arrogance. Really, we're all colleagues. There's nothing wrong with helping each other, he muttered to himself. He climbed up the mountain and quickly reached the top. However, the array here had already dimmed. Obviously, the ice origin stone had been taken away. Ling Han did not stop and continued forward. He remembered that the people from the Gold Origin Holy Land had said that there was an immortal tree here, and its fruit had just ripened. Where was it? He sped up. Because he had studied the array and gone to the lake to catch fish, his first-place position had long been lost. After crossing over the mountains, the formations on them had all stopped and the ice origin stones had all been taken away. After traveling for another half a day, Ling Han arrived at a new mountain peak. Finally, the formation here was still in operation, and there were many people trying to barge in. Ling Han's gaze swept across and immediately revealed a murderous intent. Hong Tian stepped before he could make a move. The ice origin stone had already been snatched by a young man in a green robe. It wasn't that his strength was overwhelming and invincible, but that he had summoned an oil lamp. Under the illumination of the light, countless shadowy figures appeared, dispersing all the incoming attacks, allowing him to rush to the front and take away the ice essence stones. A bunch of trash. The azure-robed youth immediately began mocking them. Ling Han was astounded. There was no lack of experts here. Was it really okay for him to be so talkative? As expected, someone immediately snorted and said, Luo Xian, you're too arrogant. This is just an ice origin stone. We don't even care about it. Why do you need to fight for it? If you can't win, then you can't win. What's with all these excuses? The azure-robed youth, Luo Xian, laughed madly. Come. I'll use this chance to beat all of you to the ground. I alone will be enough to participate in this metal origin fruit festival. Idiot, said the first person coldly. The person from before said coldly, there should be another immortal tree up ahead. At that time, I will fulfill your wish and spar with you. And Zhu Yue, if you're afraid, then you're afraid. Don't find excuses. Luo Xian continued to mock her. It really hadn't been easy for such a talkative person to grow so big. And Zhu Yue ignored him. She activated her movement technique and continued forward. Everyone followed her. You despicable fellow, you dare use your divine sense to hurt me? I'll cut you to pieces. This actually provoked Luo Xian, causing him to go berserk. Ling Han naturally didn't care. Another baleful chi attack shot out as he used the demon monkey fist to fight against Luo Xian. Boom boom boom. Under the baleful chi attack, Luo Xian's strength was naturally affected. Adding on the frequency of the demon monkey fist, Ling Han's combat ability was no weaker than Luo Xian's. Despicable, despicable. Luo Xian roared, but there was nothing he could do. No matter how he resisted, he was unable to resist the baleful chi attack. He clearly had the absolute advantage in terms of strength. Immortal slaying art. He used his ultimate technique, and a terrifying aura surged out of his body. Whoosh! A beam of light slashed towards Ling Han. It was so fast that even Ling Han wasn't able to dodge it. They are tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.